And welcome to SEC Sports Roundtable. Got a big week in the football arena here in the SEC. We've got the SEC Championship coming up. LSU versus, almost said Alabama. I'm ready for the national championship.
Skipping ahead.
Yeah, I'm going on to the BCS championship game. Hate to give the Georgia, not give them their props, so sorry about that, Georgia fans. So LSU will be hosting Georgia. I think LSU's listed as a home team, even though the game's going to be played in Georgia's backyard. So we've got that coming up, but we want to welcome everyone to another episode of the SEC Sports Roundtable. I want to kick the episode off this week and talk a little bit about our push in December. And if you've been following us on Facebook or Twitter, you've seen a couple of our posts about that. And we've got two-a-days in December. And what we're looking for, and we're asking for your help with this, is we would love to get two likes and two Twitter ads as far as followers every day for the month of December. So that's just a total of 4. But we're looking for that every day in the month of December. So we're kicking that off a couple days early. We sent this out yesterday really hard, and today is the last day of November that we're recording. So want to get a jump out there, but love for you guys to help and follow us. If you're not on Facebook, it's easy. Just go to SEC Sports Roundtable on Facebook, and up at the very top, there's a like button. All you got to do is click it. We'd appreciate it. If you're on Twitter, look at SECSRT and just hit follow. It's that simple there as well, and you'll be able to get updates from the roundtable, as well as know when the latest podcasts are coming out and other information from us here. So wanted to take a second before we really got into things to mention that, and thank you guys for listening to us. We do appreciate that.
And a little added incentive, if we do hit that goal, Shane will be streaking across the field at the national championship game. So if you just want to see that, then just follow or like us.
There we go. And you don't want to see that, really, I promise. You can see us on video with clothes. You definitely don't want to see us without clothes.
What happens in New Orleans stays in New Orleans.
That's happened more than once, hasn't it not? But since I mentioned the video, we'd love to get you to follow us there as well. We're on YouTube. SECSRT is the channel there. So that's all the ways to find us, as well as our website, which is SEC Sports Roundtable. I'll get things kicked off here and welcome everyone here and say hello to our co-hosts. We've got Drew Young sitting across from me. Good evening, Drew.
Good evening, fellow podcasters besides Shane.
Drew is not happy with me apparently this week, and you'll probably understand why a little bit later. But we've also got Blair Smiley here with us. Blair, how are you?
Going well. Good to be back.
Got a new host here, Britton Burton. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Not a problem. Glad you could make it. For those that listen on a regular basis, I think, was it last week or the week before we were going to try to get you on? And
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. We had a little problem here with Nashville traffic.
On a Sunday, strangely enough.
And so we were one man short, so we wanted to get Britton back in the seat and give him a chance to redeem himself. So he's got a lot of pressure since he got called back after a no-show. But no, we're happy to have him here. For those who know what our allegiances are, Britton is a big Alabama fan, and that's the one thing that I think that makes this podcast unique, as opposed to the big heads and stuff of ESPN or CBS is, they have to not have an allegiance per se,
or at least act like they don't.
They've got to act impartial, and in our world, that's part of what makes this fun, and so we all have our allegiances, and we're all fans of a particular team, but that doesn't mean that we just don't love the SEC in general, and that's the real reason why we do it, do the podcast, and we'll that just. The love of that and our teams, of course. But that's what does make this unique, is that we're not afraid to show who we root for. Drew, this is 3 podcasts in a row, sporting the orange, two with the jersey. And
well, football season's over for Tennessee, so I can't wear the jersey anymore. I'll still wear some gear.
All right. To get some orange pants, you'd be looking like Dooley on the field. With you got the headset, the gray shirt, the hat.
Pass. I don't want to look like him right now. He's in the doghouse for a couple months.
Maybe he'll see this and want to take the new hair, the new facial hair.
He should. He should go
style.
with the old English mutton chops and mustache.
I think that'd work for him. that might buy him another year. You never know with these Tennessee fans.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a one day look for me, or one night. Just shaved it today and got some weird looks at the gas station. So,
well, and for those that do listen regularly, Drew and myself both have been looking for some employment for a little while, and Drew, it looks like there's some things on the horizon for you, so that gave you reason to shave, I believe, correct?
Yeah, it was. Everybody asked me if it was No Shave November, and it was more No Shave No Job. So, you get an interview, and I don't think I'm smart enough to know that you probably should just go ahead and shave before that, and why not the day before? Have a little fun with old time English facial hair.
But now you do have the luxury of, after the interview, starting it back, correct?
Absolutely.
I mean, once you get that offer letter, they can't tell you to shave it. I don't think most companies do not have a facial hair policy that says
you just always want to make that good first impression. So.
We're not the Yankees, right? Don't they have a no facial hair policy?
Actually, I am interviewing with the Yankees, so that's why I have to shave. No sideburns, no mustache or anything. I'm hoping to be their third baseman.
Good thing you're not like Johnny Damon hair, and you had to cut all that as well.
Yeah.
So, but we'll get we've gone off topic from the very beginning here, so we'll try to.
Hey, by all means, let's just off topic this whole thing. I mean, I know there's a big game. We can talk a little bit about LSU and Georgia, and then maybe the national championship, but we don't need to recap the games last week. We don't need to talk about any of that stuff. I mean, it was pretty inconsequential. So let's talk about some television shows or something.
I'd like to talk about the games last week.
Congratulations, y'all beat a team worse than Tennessee. Y'all beat Ole Miss.
Well, let's talk about a couple of things that are somewhat in the news. A lot of it is still speculation and hearsay and rumors, and we're all about those here at the Roundtable. So we're going to help feed that fire, so to speak, and talk a little bit about some of the coaching changes that are going on, and who's supposed to go where, and who might be leaving the SEC. And see how true none of that probably will be. Blair, you want to kick us off a little bit, talk about some coaching changes possibly on the horizon in your neck of the woods, as well as your neighbor down the road in Oxford as well.
Yeah, we'll probably start off with the Ole Miss, since we know they are going to have a new coach, and it's been a search. I think it's been going on. Archie and what's the gentleman from FedEx, Mike Glenn, have been meeting. There was typically about 4 candidates that have been kind of popular names that have been consistently thrown out there. That was Larry Fedora from Southern Miss, Kirby Smart from Alabama, Hugh Freeze, which was Michael Orr's high school coach, and then his Arkansas State's coach, and spent some time at Ole Miss.
I wasn't too impressed with I don't know the real coach, but the actor that played his coach on The Blind Side just didn't strike me as a really good coach. So exactly. I think I'd just rule him out just for that.
I understand. That's pretty good. I mean, then also Mark Hudspeth, who was at North Alabama for 8 years, won a couple of national championships, came over with Mullen to Mississippi State as a wide receivers coach, and then took over Louisiana Lafayette last year. And he has, I think, the best turnaround in the country. They went 4-8 last year, and I think they're 8-3 right now with a game to go. So he actually took his name out of the hat yesterday, and I think he actually had the offer from Tulane that he turned down as well. So if you're winning at Louisiana Lafayette, I think you can turn down Tulane pretty easily. So I mean, it's one of those deals where. So
why turn down Mississippi so quick?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know if it was a fit for Ole Miss as well, and I'm not really sure. I mean, it's one of those things where he can win another year at Louisiana Lafayette and say, I can possibly be in the opening for a better job and a more winnable situation possibly. Not really sure, but I know that with Archie in the background, I'm assuming that there's some type of out of left field candidate that we'll hear about in the next couple of days. But
Peyton.
Yeah, right. That's the dumbest thing ever, by the way.
That is just real quick. I read the Tennessee message boards all the time, and they're always like, would you take Peyton as offensive coordinator right now? And first of all, this guy is 1 year removed from being, I don't know if he won the MVP, but he had a really good season last year. I know he has, neck problems. But one, I don't think his playing career is necessarily over. And two, I just can't imagine this guy's like, all right, I know I had an illustrious Hall of Fame career. I'm ready to just get right into coaching in college.
Especially at Ole Miss. I mean, that's like the dumbest thing ever because he has no affiliation with Ole Miss other than his dad played there and his brother played there. He chose Tennessee, and I just think it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. But
no talk on the Kevin Sumlin guy from Houston or anything. I think that's be a wonderful name
too. But I think he's also. I mean, obviously we saw on Saturday there was 9 to 12 jobs that opened up right away. So I think he's in the mix for a lot of other jobs. You know, Illinois, some of those. Even read an article that he needs to stay put because there's some better jobs out there that he'll be in line for. I like him. I mean, he's done some stuff at Houston, but I think Archie came out and said I think within about 2.5 weeks is what he's shooting for in getting a name to the committee. So I would think by the later part of this week and into the weekend we'll kind of get some headway on where they're going to be going.
I'm sure you've talked about it before, but aren't they? Don't you think they're kind of handicapping themselves by doing it backwards and not hiring the AD? I mean, is Archie going to just be the AD in name for the future?
Well, I think that we actually talked about that before, where it's kind of a unique situation. I think where you've got basically a longtime legend that is really starting the search. And so the president has kind of distanced himself, even though he says he's going to have the final decision. But there's going to be an AD that actually comes in at some point in time, and I do think that hinders their search, and I think that's why you're seeing names like Hugh Freeze and Larry Fedora. I mean, how many Ole Miss fans are going to be excited that the Southern Miss coach came? I mean, he may be good. I mean, he's done some good things at Southern Miss, but you know, and it may be a no name like that actually ends up being the best option for him. But I don't know if just a regular Ole Miss fan is going to be excited about that.
Well, that's working for Kentucky and Tennessee, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
the no name.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think those are a little bit.
I mean, Kentucky had the coach and waiting tag on a former. For Kentucky fans, we knew who Joker Phillips was.
Exactly.
But
he was.
He was a homegrown.
And Tennessee kind of got stuck a little bit.
I didn't know who the hell Derek Dooley was when he got hired.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew as much as anybody. Yeah, I mean, I knew who his dad was.
How many people Googled Derek Dooley when that was announced?
I think my quote to somebody.
I knew who he was because Mississippi State lost to him at La Tech the year before.
And my quote was something like, "There's no way that Tennessee's about to hire some joke named Derek Dooley." You know,
yeah.
And of course that's who we get. So
yeah. So I mean,
we lose to Kentucky.
See, I don't think those names excite those. I think there's still a little bit of the unknown with Kirby Smart. I mean, is he really running the defense at Alabama? Is he a guy that's going to go in and take over a program and put a stamp on it? And does he want to go to an Ole Miss situation where he maybe can hold out and kind of hang out a little bit for even a more potential job? So I don't know from that standpoint.
But if he plays his cards right, I mean, he's from the Saban camp just like Dooley was, so maybe he'll be able to not hate to throw this at you there, Drew, but get some. Because let's face it, Ole Miss is not the most lucrative place to go. Just like with Dooley going to Tennessee when he did, it wasn't the best job available. To work in that contract, some crazy buyout. I mean,
that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. He's got a $5 million buyout till 2013, till February of 2013. So if next year he has a 6-6 team and y'all actually fire, I know we're going off topic here.
No, it's fine. I mean,
but
it is what it is.
If he's fired next year, you will have to wait till February to opt out of a $5 million buyout, which is kind of crazy because everybody's like, well, Tennessee was they were in a tough spot at the time and he had leverage. I'm like, you're Tennessee and you've gone to really what was your third or fourth or fifth or sixth option at the time because, you made overtures to other people, and Derek Dooley is who you ended with. How he manages a $5 million buyout is
$5 million buyout is nothing to the University of Tennessee.
Well, I understand it's nothing, but it's still a large number.
They're also paying him $2 million a year, whereas other, what's Urban Meyer getting at Ohio State? I mean, it was $4 million base and like $6.4 million with retention bonuses.
$40 million in 7 years.
Tennessee, who's making just as much money as any athletic program in the country
kind
saving enough money
yeah.
by paying their coaches crap.
If y'all would have actually paid somebody $4 million, you would probably have somebody else.
I don't think they
pay someone to coach.
I don't disagree. I mean, I wish that I'll throw a bone to a guy that I've just kind of hated the last couple months, Clay Travis, who's on a local radio show here, who's a kind of a sellout, but he's trying to get listeners to his radio show, which is smart marketing on his part. I mean, he's Tennessee fan. I mean, he'll say that, but he doesn't like Dooley, and his idea is absolutely make it public, offer $5 million a year, and don't hire like a search firm to gauge interest. Just offer it to them. If they say no, then go to the next person.
Well, that's what.
And I'd like to see that in Tennessee's coaching search next year.
That's what I'm actually.
That's what it's already done.
Come on, I understand $5 million is not a big thing for you, but $5 million is still $5 million. And
but
how
look at
Derek Dooley has $5 million is what's so crazy to me is because if you're the way I think about it, if you're the fifth choice and you go, hey, I'm going to give you your dream job when you normally wouldn't be in this situation, and then you ask me for $5 million, I say I'm Tennessee, I'll go hire this other guy that's at your level, and you know what I mean? I mean, I
think apparently there wasn't another guy. You know,
it's just crazy.
There's two things that I want to interject there. I mean. The first is we need him as our agent when we start negotiating for jobs, because
he is a lawyer. Maybe that's how he.
I mean, I don't know if he had an agent when he negotiated the Tennessee job or not, but whoever negotiated that contract did a stellar job. So kudos to them for padding that the way it did.
Yeah.
But now also, I mean, isn't Franklin getting upwards of 3 now? Is that the rumor here in Vanderbilt? He's got an extension that's just waiting for the ink to dry.
That's the rumor. David Williams is still kind of finalizing all the details, but that's the rumor.
Yeah, he was on the radio today, and I think the biggest thing I think he's going to get some
upwards of 3. Is that right?
I don't know if it's upwards of 3. I don't know about that number. I didn't hear that part of it, but I think the biggest thing is the commitment from the school from a facility standpoint. Yeah. Is more of the deal. So I think giving him the resources to kind of, I mean, I think he came out and said, okay, the team did their job, and I did my job, so now I need you to do it. And then the next stage is getting the football stadium filled, for crying out loud. I mean, you know, the fans have actually got to say, okay, he did something here, and we wanted to kind of see how it worked out. So next year they should see somewhat of an increase from that standpoint. But it is kind of interesting, the Dooley thing.
I think it's the problem, and also what's good about this. If we weren't as passionate about sports as we are, we wouldn't be doing a podcast, and there wouldn't be a need for this. But it's all just, everything is so overreacting either one way or the other. And I don't think there was any situation where Tennessee thought we're going to fire a coach. You know, I mean, they need stability. They went out and got a guy, and they fully plan to give him at a minimum of 3 years to correct this ship. Well, last year I was as excited as anybody, saying, yeah, Tennessee lost the Music City Bowl, but we've got the offense in place. The defense can only get better. We've had good recruiting classes. We're on our way back. And then this year, it's kind of a, you know, you've heard me talk about it, the curse type thing. Yes, that Kentucky loss is inexcusable. Shouldn't have lost to not a Kentucky team. I mean, you're going to get beat
that Kentucky
eventually.
team.
You just don't get beat by the worst Kentucky team in the last 20 years playing a wide receiver at quarterback. I think that's bad. But, I mean, you look at it, Tennessee had I think they probably finished with the hardest strength of schedule in the entire country, if not top 5. I mean, the only game they lost that they should not have lost is the Kentucky game. Every other game was one against a team that's probably better than them, and 2, they lost their 2 best offensive players for most of those games.
Well, and I think you somewhat agreed with me at the very beginning of this podcast. We did our previews, and I said that Tennessee is going to be a good team unless they have some injuries. And if they do, they're going to struggle to be 500. And if it wasn't you, we had agreement here at the Roundtable that was going to be Tennessee's problem. Is on paper they've got a strong team that they could easily win 6, 7, or 8 games because they're going to need a couple things to go their way. But if they got struck with some injuries, they're going to struggle to get 500. And that's exactly what's played out.
Sure.
And if you asked any Tennessee fan at the beginning of this season that very question, and you gave them that scenario saying, okay, you're going to have this, and this happen, what do you expect your team's record to be? None of them would have said 6-6 or better. And so I don't understand why everybody's so up in arms.
Oh, I do, because of the way that they actually played. It's one thing to say, okay, I've got injuries and I ended up 5-7, but all those players busted their tail and they just didn't get it done. They just there's issues at Knoxville right now within everything. I mean, you can sit there and say on Saturday that there was no way, shape, or form they would have lost to Ole Miss, I think, because they just flat didn't care to be there. They didn't want to participate. And I think that is what's irking people even more, is that not only were they seemed to just be kind of out of it, it seemed to just be – and then for me, to top it all off, you don't pull what Derek Dooley did. He's too honest for his own good.
You
But
say
you don't
we're not a
come
good
out
football
and say,
team.
we're not a good football team. And I've been trying to tell you that all year, guys. He tries to – he's brutally honest to a fault, and you don't say that, even if it's true. You don't say.
Well, I'll tell you, I think you're right, and I disagree with a little bit of that. I'll tell you, my problem as a Tennessee fan is I grew up on the 1990s Tennessee Vols, where a bad season was 9-2.
Yeah.
No, 9-2. I mean, when you played 11 games, if you lost 2 games in a season, I mean, we lost to Florida most of the time. If you lose that second game, maybe we're still going to it was a Citrus Bowl, the Capital One Bowl. It just, I mean, we had a 3-loss season is almost unheard of. Here was a good stat. Philip Fulmer lost his however many losses Dooley has. It took Philip Fulmer like 11 years to lose those, and Dooley did it in 2 years. So I think Tennessee fans and myself are spoiled. I don't like losing. It used to be that I never, ever would wake up on a Saturday and think Tennessee was going to lose. I think we win every game, and now it's 50-50 most of the games, and going into games where what was that Tennessee-Alabama spread? I think it was like 27 or something, wasn't it?
27.
It was like 27 or 28 points, and that's unacceptable. I mean, how does this program get to this level? And me being a realist, knowing how hard it's going to be to get it back, because now you've got the Alabama who's back to where they, they're an elite program. LSU has gone to be an elite program. Auburn, won a national championship. Florida, all these teams.
Arkansas is there with Petrino. They're not.
Yeah, there's just not enough room to really be that. I think Tennessee fans are upset because we let it get to this position. Now Alabama, had the Mike Shula years, and they definitely went down. And you know what they did? They went out and hired a coach that had won a national championship. Do y'all remember when they hired Saban, how much money that was? I mean, it was almost double what anybody else was paying a coach. Now there are other programs that pay that, but everybody, I remember people thinking, oh, that's just way too much. How can you pay Nick Saban that much money? And they were just ahead of the curve. They were innovators. They thought ahead. And what does Tennessee do? They go out and they do what they always do. They try to hire a coach that is unproven and let him kind of work his way there. The only coach they've ever hired that was something was Johnny Majors. He had won at Pitt,
Yeah.
But the reason they hired him was because he was a Tennessee guy. Fulmer, he worked his way up. Lane Kiffin, that guy had never done anything, and then Dooley. So I think it's tough. The hardest part is that the expectations, even realistically, a Tennessee fan can say, I think 7-5. But that's not true. 7-5, and we're still not just completely satisfied.
Yeah,
I remember the days of 10 and 1.
I think the other thing that just
Real quick, it was 28.5.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And
Anyway, I
here's
can
also
make that extra,
they didn't cover that either.
yeah.
And it was tied at halftime.
The crazy thing is that I think it's as irrelevant as Tennessee's been. Probably, it's the only time they've had back-to-back losing seasons since like 1910 and 11. That's 100 years.
Yeah, he keeps setting records for like futility.
It really is. If it wasn't for Ole Miss and their debacle, Tennessee would be as irrelevant as any program in the SEC this year. That's just how bad it got, and it just happens like that.
And throw in the fact that Tennessee, with the whole Bruce Pearl stuff. At least last year I could look forward to the basketball season. This year, I like Conzo Martin. I think he's done a great job as far as getting this team to play hard, but it's not. I can't expect much from them in that. So it's almost like you go from either having a team that contends for national championship in football to where then for a while you had a team that could win in basketball, and now you don't have either. So what am I going to look forward to now?
So what is your
women's
stance
basketball?
on? Since we're kind of talking about coaching rumors or whatever, what is your stance on Dooley in his third year? Because I know that heated up and it was an overreaction, but
I think the better question is, what's the number? I mean, don't you agree that
Yeah, I think there needs to be. I think it's. I don't know if it's a number as much.
It's
as
a style of
is.
play and a control of the team.
So you're saying if he controls the team and he's at 7-5?
Nah, I think you got to be at 8.
There you go.
No,
See,
I
it
don't
doesn't.
think-
It doesn't matter how much control he's got over the team if he doesn't have 8 wins.
Yeah, I think that ultimately it comes down to numbers. I can't say that I look at that personally. Last year, once again, was a 6-6 regular season, and I felt great about the direction of the program. This year is a 5-7 season, and I don't feel as good because I don't feel like he got those kids to play as hard as they could.
Yeah.
Not because I would have been okay with a 6-loss season looking back on it, because those were all games that they necessarily shouldn't have won. The fact that you lose to Kentucky with a flipping wide receiver playing quarterback is unacceptable, and he's going to get some heat for it. That being said, next year, as long as as Tyler Bray comes back and he plays the way he can, you get Justin Hunter back and just show improvement. Yeah, I mean it's got to show some results on the field. I mean, I think like James Franklin, he actually got the wins. This Wake Forest win was a huge one to make him bowl eligible, because he actually did have the improvement as far as the wins and the way they played.
I think it's one of the things that also is got Tennessee fans in uproar.
Absolutely,
They've got a guy that just came to Vanderbilt and did what he did. Well, I got a question for you on Dooley. Looking at it from obviously a non-biased opinion, but you got a new AD that has come in, and now I would have never even thought about it. But when this buyout thing came out, I was sitting there going, if it costs $5 million today to get rid of him, and it costs $5 million next December. I mean, because you're not going to fire him in February if he has a subpar year, and you've got to make that decision. As an AD, do you look at Dooley and go, okay, do I think that this guy can take me where we need to go, or do I go with the staff changes that are probably going to come with what's going to happen in the offseason? I think they got to make some changes. You can't say, okay, this was I think that's saying that what happened this year is acceptable. I mean, is it one of those deals from an AD standpoint, you go, what, I'm going to go ahead and make the move, and I'm going to go in and actually offer big money and start the process a year early because there's too much at stake to say, okay, what if you're having this conversation in December of next year?
I think it's totally dependent on who he thinks he can get in there. He's got to have a good idea of who he can get in. What you can't afford to have is go get rid of Dooley, get rid of the whole staff, and then have to hire a brand new staff and then have people turn you down like they have the last 2 jobs.
He's got to have an offer waiting.
I mean, what's
in the wings? Is that
like Kirby Smart? I think he could be a good coach, but I mean, why in the world would you get rid of Derek Dooley and hire another unproven?
Yeah, Tennessee. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying if you can go get a name coach,
Rick Neuheisel?
No, I don't think I think he's
proven, available.
Yeah, he's definitely available. I'm saying it would take a big name.
But now he's proven he can coach. I mean, look what he did. It was Colorado. I mean, if it wasn't for the allegations,
it was Washington.
He's worked at Colorado as well.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
I think that's where. Didn't he win the national championship at Colorado?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like 90, or was that somebody else? He's probably playing back then.
McCarthy or whatever his name is, Bill McCarthy or whatever.
But I think
he
got his start down there.
I wouldn't fire Dooley for Rick Neuheisel.
I see Tennessee's current situation is like a direct parallel for what Alabama was going through in the early 2000s. Derek Dooley is your Mike Shula. You've been through a tumultuous period, gone through some coaches, had some losses. Dooley is there to kind of restore order. They know that he's maybe not the best coach, but like Shula was not really going to win big for Alabama. He at least wasn't going to be partying with strippers and doing cocaine like Mike Price, and he wasn't going to leave for Texas A&M in the middle of the season like Franchione. Dooley was kind of what you were stuck with, but you can't. I just don't think you can fire him right now, even with the buyout, because then you start that whole. You can either go down the road Alabama went down, where you have 6 coaches in 8 years, or you can have this guy and he kind of plods through it and gets it over with for 4 years. You're not very good, and then you finally say, okay, we're going to go out and get Nick Saban. We're going to break the bank to get whoever it may be.
I'll tell you what pisses me off too, and I'm sure you'll remember this. They have a deal with Rich Rodriguez to come. Like, he was gonna come, and then he changed his mind.
He changed his mind.
God, why couldn't he just come? I mean, Nick Saban would have gone somewhere else.
And we were excited about Rich Rod, and
I thought it was a wonderful hire.
And man, I'm so glad.
Oh God!
I say Tennessee offers $12 million a year to Nick Saban. Says, come on, if you want $12 million a year, You got the keys.
Alabama would match and surpass.
Exactly. Do it. I mean, just make them match it at least.
I still think in what I've said.
So Tennessee's
podcasts
going to be the Theo Epstein of college football, just raising the price on all the coaches out there.
Exactly, yeah. But I mean, I think Tennessee is in a limbo situation. I don't think there's any way they're not giving him next year. I don't think you're going to fire him after 2 years. But I think he did pretty much have a lock of a fourth year when he started the year, and I don't think that's there now.
Here's the question.
The other thing is like you still are in that limbo where you don't know if he's actually going to be good, and you don't know if he's going to be bad. Like, you don't really have enough to say, I know he's going to be one thing or the other. So I think, unfortunately, the patience has got the $5 million buyout is just crazy to me still anyway.
But, I mean, I on the surface, I say $5 million is a crazy number, but really it's a net of $3 million because you're going to pay the guy $2 million anyways for his salary. So you're going to save that $2 million in the buyout. So really, you only have a $3 million buyout. But now, here's the other thing as far as, and this was a point I was going to try to make earlier, was does Tennessee, isn't Fuller still receiving money from his payout, and isn't Kiffin still receiving money from his payout? So now you're adding a
I don't think Kiffin got a payout. Did he left?
Kiffin may be paying Tennessee.
Yeah.
So see, maybe that's where the buyout was. So that's where the math was. So see, it'd all be a net zero.
Yeah, I mean, $5 million to Tennessee is a whole lot different than $6 million to Ole Miss. I mean, you're talking about a $45 million to $50 million budget to $100+ million budget. Yeah. So it's not that much money. It's just, I'm coming from Mississippi State standpoint, and that's $45 million budget. It's a big deal.
It's not even, a quarter of the stadium seating to pay for it?
That's what's crazy is they sit there and they're like, oh, we don't want to pay an extra. They're talking about with the basketball coach, we're not going to pay $3 million a year. And then I sit there and think, if you average like 6,000 less fans per game, I mean, you make that up in,
right, exactly.
in ticket sales.
You make a great point, because that's the same thing in football is you pay a guy $4 million up front if you're Tennessee. Like, I mean, if you got 100,000 stadium, because, I mean, that Vanderbilt game, what did they turn? 75,000 maybe went through the turnstiles there?
I have no idea.
I mean,
I know they averaged about 90, 91.
Yeah, I mean, but I know that one of the I think they even said one.
What's tickets go for it at Tennessee?
$45 probably.
Oh, it's more than that. It's got to be 50 at least. It's 50 at Mississippi State.
50, sorry.
So 90,000 times 50.
It's a lot.
4.5.
That's just general. That's just regular.
Honestly, if it's a $50 average ticket and they're Tennessee,
you're the math whiz.
Used to be averaging 100 and 203,000, and now they're in the high 80s. I mean, that's 750,000 per home game. You get what, 7 of those a year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's $5.2 million that you lose in ticket sales,
just from going from 80 to
salary.
Yeah, and now this is all rough numbers because you don't know how many of those tickets were sold and just not used for the scalpers and whatnot. But think about that, and then add the concessions in. Probably each person's spending an average of $12 to $15.
What's the Mexican Bowl thing there?
I
could spend that
at the Petros.
I could spend that just in the Petros.
They're very good.
But
Shane, we got to move on, don't we? I mean, this is
we do. But I mean, it really when you sit there and you crunch numbers and you break it down that way, and that's something when we sit and talk as normally we don't think about that. But now that we've worked through this and are doing this, and we have computers and laptops and iPads, it doesn't. Not even to mention jersey sales and everything else from a successful program, it doesn't take that much to make up that difference to pay the good coach.
Not only does it take much to make it up, but it doesn't take much for them not to show up, because it's all about an experience now. It's just, I mean, they even talked about it at Vanderbilt today. That's what they were talking about is, you used to come to a football game 15 years ago because if you didn't go to the football game, you couldn't see it.
Right.
And so now it's all about an experience. You can go watch it on your 55-inch
I think that's
big screen, and if you're wanting to watch a football game, that's what you can actually do. But if it's more about an experience and being there, you don't want to miss something. And in that situation, I think that's where a lot of the escalation in coaches' salaries are coming from, because they can go, okay, I'm going to pay this guy $3 million at Mississippi State. But if I try to go 1.5, and all of a sudden 3 years down the road he's not winning, then I'm filling up 38,000 seats instead of 55,000. Yeah. That's a huge deal.
All right, so let's recap real quick. Ole Miss is gonna hire the head coach from the movie The Blind Side, and Tennessee is not gonna fire Derek Dooley. We've talked about this for probably 25 minutes, and he's gonna get probably a third year and a fourth year and fifth and sixth, and we'll just fade into mediocrity.
And now we didn't even touch on Mississippi State. We just went way off base there. We'll touch on that quickly because those rumors are starting to whirl around.
Yeah, it's obviously who was the ESPN guy that came out yesterday. One of the articles that listed Penn State as Mullen being on the top of the priority list for Penn State, which Mullen has ties there. I mean, his dad's alumnus of Penn State. He had season tickets there, I think 20-plus years. Mullen grew up in that area. So I think if they realistically first of all, I think it would be a really, really good hire for Penn State, to be honest with you. I think it would be as good as they could get. I mean, do y'all not agree? I mean, everybody says it's a pretty toxic environment.
His shine wore off a little bit for me this last year. I mean, I know it's once again a very tough place to play, but I mean, everybody was all up on him like he was the second coming.
Well, I think when you win 9 ball games at Mississippi State in your second year, everybody's going to be like, okay. And you had a lot of people come back, but
they're 7-5 this year.
6-6.
But
6-6.
But he also set high expectations this year. I mean, he even mentioned competing for the West when you had Arkansas.
6-6 and we're disappointed. That's a little bit of a change of pace from what Mississippi State's been about, and it's just like we talked about on other podcasts. I mean, Mississippi State's lost 10 games in the last 2 years, 4 last year, 6 this year, and 9 of the 10 have been ranked 14th or higher in the country. I mean, you're playing with, the only game that we lost, which everybody says we probably should have won, was one at Auburn this year on their home field, and they're ranked in the 23rd in the BCS. So I mean, it's the price of playing in the toughest division.
But now, how much of a setback do you think Mississippi State would take if that does happen? I mean, this season was somewhat of a letdown off of a season where you were
Mullen leaving.
If Mullen does, I know you said.
I think if Penn State wants him, I think he goes. I mean, I don't think any reasonable Mississippi State fan would think that he would just automatically stay. I think if he gets some guarantees there, I think he's going to get $4+ million. I think he'll have all the resources available to him. I think he'll get the time and all that stuff. So I think he's gone. Now, if you had asked me that question last year, I would have been really, really nervous. But this year, I'm not as nervous from the fact that if he does leave, I think we're in a better situation today to go out and get a Mark Hudspeth or a Manny Diaz. I think those are the first 2 calls that Strickland makes that I think are kind of a youth movement. Because Hudspeth's early 40s at the oldest, and he's got a track record of being a good football coach. He's from Mississippi. He recruits very well. And then, of course, Manny Diaz, I think, is kind of a hot name that was at Mississippi State, and they can bring in to kind of energize. He's got the personality kind of like Mullen has from that standpoint.
Does he have a wife like Mullen?
I'm trying to think. I don't know. I have no idea.
I just remember her at Super Bulldog Weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, she's an ex-golf channel analyst for women's PGA or LPGA. I mean, Mullen, the one thing you'll actually learn is that this happened last year with Florida and Miami. I mean, he was all over the place, supposedly going to be taking those jobs. And, his whole thing is that he deals in realities. You'll hear him talk about this. I mean, his quote yesterday when they brought up Penn State was, great. I'm probably on everybody's list, right? That's what you got to love about him is that he's like, y'all deal in all these rumors, and I don't deal in that. I deal in realities. And so for him, which I think is a good thing, is that he basically doesn't acknowledge anything. So the day that he says he wants to talk about Mississippi State football, and that's what he's going to talk about. So I think that's the only way you can do it as a coach, because if you address every rumor, you won't get anything done.
So last year was – I mean, media and normal people like us assumed that he was going to Florida just because that made sense. Was there ever really any?
I think if you actually look at that situation, I don't think Florida. I think Jeremy Foley had Will Muschamp in the back pocket because that happened within about 2 weeks. And
I bet you if they had it to do over again, they might do something different.
They might, yeah. And I think that he was in there, but I also think that Mullen. we've just committed to a $25 million football-only facility. I mean, they've already got the funds. They've already got the funds to actually the campaign to enlarge the stadium. So I think he's that guy that's just arrogant enough to go, I want to do something where it's never been done. But I also think that there's 10 jobs out there that he can't pass up, and
so
I
is
think
the
Penn State's one of
is
them.
that a rumor thing, or is that coming from a source that?
No, well,
that
they just said that through sources he is the top on their priority. Not that he's been contacted or anything like that. I think a Jackson TV station came in last night with a report that said he had already basically been offered the job and he was leaving, and they kind of squashed that real quick. But I don't know. We'll see. I think it's a legit. I think it's a legit candidacy. I think, but I think he'll be listed for a lot of people's jobs. I think this will be something we'll deal with every year as long as he's there.
Britton, any coaching changes down your way in Alabama?
The rumor keeps coming up about Kirby Smart. I think Saban's safe, but Kirby Smart comes up kind of like Mullen. He's going to come up with everything. You're hearing Ole Miss, Texas A&M, oddly, who still has a coach, but some people think they may not, and he might be more interested in that because they have a better chance of winning, especially now.
And and they've got the facilities. I mean,
they've got the facilities, they've got the money, and that you can recruit Texas to the SEC now. But I'll kind of believe it when I see it with Kirby Smart. He's one. Actually, if you look at the Saban assistants that have gone on to new jobs, there's not a ton of success there.
Yeah.
Jimbo Fisher's not really killing it. Dooley's not killing it. Muschamp's not killing it. Chiswick paid $200,000 to kill it. We all know that. So, I don't know.
Right across the bow.
Shots fired. We'll see what happens. But.
Shane, I actually do. I've got a buddy that I kind of met up with again. Hadn't talked to him in a while. He's an Auburn fan and said he'd love to do the podcast. So might get him on sometime. That's the thing. I think that's the one that would really come to blows would be at Alabama and Auburn.
Oh yeah.
We'd have one guy sneaking around poisoning trees and poisoning his water.
I mean, what do you think about Saban and all of his assistants? I mean, I know we're still going way.
No, I just want to know: can I pick the trees at my house that he poisons? That's
yeah. That's
need
true.
to get rid of some stumps.
Oh, yeah.
Just start celebrating around them, and that's
you
where they'll go.
You didn't get here in the daytime, so yeah, I've got a few trees I need to get rid of.
But I think that's one of the concerns that a lot of Ole Miss, that a lot of my buddies that are Ole Miss fans have, is that they're not really sure if Kirby Smart's the guy that's truly running the defense, and is that the kind of route that they want to go unknown. I still think that I don't think Ole Miss is paying $2.7 million like they're paying Houston Nutt for their next coach, and I think if you're paying $2 million, then he can actually get 1.3, 1.4 at Alabama and say, I'm cool right here, and hold out for something that possibly is larger. So I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, I think that's enough in the coaching carousel.
We beat that to death.
Yeah, I think so.
You want to go around the games real quick from last week and talk about them, or
do we want to do the bowls, or are we just gonna?
I say we just recap last week first, and that way we can get done with the season and then talk about what's for the future.
The Tennessee fan's ready to get done.
He is.
I'm just
saying, all about looking
chronological. Let's look at what happened last, and let's project what's going to happen in the future.
All about looking forward with you, isn't it, Drew?
Absolutely.
Let's have a planning session right in the middle of the podcast.
There we go. Let's determine how we want to run this. No, that's fine. We'll go straight into the games. I don't mind at all.
All right, Shane. Let's start this off. We've talked about Tennessee and a lot. Go ahead and get some gloats in, and let's talk about Kentucky.
I'm not going to gloat. I mean, as a Kentucky fan,
that felt good.
It felt. I mean, I was there. And
they rushed the field. Is that true?
They did.
Hell of a win, man.
Yeah, I went to the game.
Nice.
And as a Kentucky fan, I went to Western Kentucky University. So from a football school, we were not. Kentucky basketball has always been great, but University of Kentucky football, that program's not had just these massive, huge games. And I was a little disappointed in the crowd. I would say there was only about 45,000 in a 60,000 plus stadium, so there was a lot of empty seats, but there was a lot of electricity there. I mean, it was really, really neat to be at a game that meant so much, and to know somewhere in the second quarter, it's like we have a chance. And then all of a sudden the pit of your stomach reality hits. And, I don't remember when Bray threw that 53-yard touchdown. I said, oh, crap.
It was about 3 plays after
we scored. Yeah. But as soon
after
as
the no-call fumble. Worst call in the history of college sports, which Kentucky beat Tennessee. I'm giving them credit. We got beat by a wide receiver playing quarterback, which I've mentioned for the 3rd time now. But I think everybody can agree. Can everybody agree that that was just a bogus, horrible call?
Fumble, but
the problem.
Don't tell me you couldn't tell who recovered the ball. The Tennessee player handed the ball to the referee.
I understand that, but what the understanding is that what I think actually happened, there has to be a clear recovery on video of the person actually recovering the ball, not in a pile. Does that make sense? I know that's the NFL rule. So when they actually have a fumble, I think they just misinterpreted what they were trying to say. They just came out and said
confirmed,
yeah.
But it was also the way the whistle was blown, I think, as well, was part of the.
No,
the way
you can. Yeah, if you blow the whistle, then it has to be a clear recovery. I mean, here's another thing. There were 7 Tennessee players around it, and in my opinion, it was clear. Who recovered it, considering the guy handed him the ball.
It did move.
The problem is
within the pile. That was the problem. It's like they started one here.
That referee was 2 feet away, and the fumble. I mean, it wasn't like he was going down. He was on his feet still. He wasn't in the air. He was on his feet, and the ball was loose. They don't call it. Anyway,
in the stadium, they didn't show the replay.
Of course not. They don't show the replay. But that being said, yes, after they scored on the next play.
I mean, that's the ebb
2 plays later.
The ebb and flow of a Kentucky fan. It's like, oh, it's the same old Kentucky. We're going to turn around and just give this to Tennessee. And then for some reason, I still can't explain why they couldn't, stop when that they're going to run the Wildcat and all they're going to do is run the ball. I think Rourke was 4 of 6 for 15 yards. And you're going to have to look at the passes, but I think his longest pass was 13 of those 15 yards. So he got that all in one play early in the game. So, I mean, all they did was get the ball, run it up the middle, run it down the side. And you go, they're gonna stop them. Bray's going to turn around and beat us because, I mean, the score is close. And then we roll in at like 5.5 minutes left. I think it's the 5:43 mark. I happen to notice a bunch of blue overcoat all looking the same behind the goalposts. And I looked at my wife and I said, they think they're going to take the goalpost down. It's like this game's not even over. What are they doing? They're jinxing us, and so they're so prepared that we're going to win this game that on both sides of the end zone they've already got the crew to take down the goalpost because they know it's going to happen. And it's like, oh God, this is not going to happen. There's no way we can win.
Well, I can assure you, Tennessee wasn't going to need that goalpost because they weren't making a field goal. If they had scored a touchdown, they wouldn't need to kick the extra point. So.
But to be there and witness, the energy in the stadium, even with the lack of people there, it was just an amazing thing, and I was just blessed to be able to be there. I wasn't blessed. Let's not get crazy here, but I was really happy to be there, and then I got to follow that up with a basketball game that night. So
that's cool, man. The cool thing I thought was that the players, along with all the coaches, they didn't leak anything. With Twitter and all that kind of stuff.
There were a few rumbles on Friday that Rourke might be getting some snaps.
They kept it all the way through warm-ups.
Yeah,
it's crazy it didn't get out.
Did they close practice all week?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, just normal. I mean, I don't think the press can watch your practices. You just get after the fact updates.
After watch them stretch or something. And talk to. So.
I mean, the problem is that yes, I have numerous times talked about the fact that there was a wide receiver playing quarterback. Kentucky scored 10 points. They had 8 3-and-outs. They had a couple good drives, and yeah, it's hard. I mean, Tennessee's a young defense, and for the most part, they did what they were supposed to do as far as stopping them. But yeah, there were times that they lost contain on the outside, missed a couple tackles, and Rourke was able to run.
Yeah.
That being said, when a team scores 10 points, you should be able to score more than that. And Tennessee had 3 turnovers. One of those was at the very end. Bray. I mean, he literally looked like. I mean, there's rumors that he had the flu, and I'm not gonna give Tennessee any credit by saying, oh, if he was healthy, they would have won. The fact is, though, he was way off, and whether it was his thumb or him being sick, or as many people have said that he was high. I mean, there's rumors that he was like high when he was playing, which I don't think that's true, but He just wasn't. He wasn't right, and it's all. In my opinion, it's completely on the offense. I've got no problems with the way their defense played. You let up 10 points, you should beat Kentucky.
And the funny, I actually listened to Rick Mentor. Is that right? The defensive coordinator
for
Kentucky.
And
the
zone last night.
Yeah. When he was talking about like leading up to the game and talking to the defense, and he said that they put the onus on the defense, and they basically said, "Hey guys, we don't have a quarterback, and so we're going to come out in the first drive. They're going to have to get points. If they get any points, we got to shut them down the rest of the game." And they pretty much did that, other than the score in the back. I mean, it was essentially a 3-0 ball game.
Well, Tennessee totally forgets that there's a middle of the field and you can run slants and crossing patterns. Everything is just kind of a go route back shoulder throw. And when your quarterback is, nursing a broken thumb and he's, sick and he can't throw the ball that far, it's just not a good game plan. That's the problem Tennessee fans have with it, is that given the situation, and I'm not one of these people, but I guess I will be right now, that's as bad as Tennessee could play on offense, and they probably couldn't play much worse on defense. If they play that game 10 times, I still think Tennessee probably wins 8 or 9 of them. But that being said, Kentucky did what they were supposed to do and won the game, and you've got to be held responsible for poor management of the game.
But part of that, though, was Kentucky's defense. I mean, they've got the week before they only gave up 19 to Georgia. I mean, a good Georgia team that's really on fire.
You do have to give that to them. They did play the last 2 games. They played 2 solid games. I mean, they gave Georgia everything they wanted.
I mean, yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, if we could have scored anything at that game, we could have beat. I mean, and Kentucky had their chance. I sorry to say we, because
you can say we. This is SEC Sports Roundtable.
Kentucky had.
Because I'm going to do it the entire time.
Kentucky had all their chances in the world to beat Georgia that game, and I painstakingly watched that whole game up into the last minute and a half, where I got so mad I couldn't watch it anymore. But I mean, the defense did what they needed to do at that game, and the offense couldn't score. And realistically, they couldn't score last week either, except for 10 points, and that's what they scored against Georgia. 10. We like that number 10. As long as you keep us, you could score less than 10, we're okay from Kentucky's standpoint. But
and to add to it, how is Trevathan leading the SEC in tackles and is not on the whatever list it is?
That's just he wasn't even a finalist.
Buttress Award or whatever
it is. Yeah,
he wasn't even a finalist.
Yeah, he's not even a finalist.
And he was like top 10 in the nation. Yeah. When that cut was being made. I think he was like 7th or 8th. That's crazy. And then he's followed up, by a teammate that's also up there. It's just that's ridiculous. But
that's another thing for another day. Sorry.
Yeah, but let's go on to another game. So see, I wasn't.
No, you were fine. Thank you, Shane.
You're welcome.
I'll tell you somebody that I was impressed with, and this is
could have been much worse, but
yeah, I know. But I'd have just left, and you'd have to finish with 3 people, and I'd have knocked the camera down on the way out, and pushed over your Christmas tree, and and then like picked on your kids before I left. So
you're a mean one, yeah. Mr. Grinch.
I'll tell you one thing that I was impressed by, and I said this on the podcast. I did not think I picked them, but I didn't know that I really felt they had that much of a chance. Was Vanderbilt against Wake Forest? I mean that was just a statement. We whipped your, what?
Completely.
Because you really thought Vanderbilt would come out and be Vanderbilt and lose that game to a beatable team and go 5-7 and not make a bowl, and they
absolutely that's
opposite.
That is what Vanderbilt has always done in the past. They always lose that game that they need to get over the hump. And here's the thing: is not only did they win that game, they won that game 41-7.
I mean, they went out and just took it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
I mean, Zach Stacy has 3 rushing touchdowns.
Sets a school record, single season school record for.
Yeah, he had well over 1,000 yards rushing. I mean, they found their quarterback. They only threw the ball 16 times and won that way. That's impressive. That's all I can say about it.
Vanderbilt did what they needed to do, and that's something that you don't say about a Vanderbilt team often.
And I don't think that this wasn't a horrible Wake. This is a bowl eligible Wake Forest team. So
yeah,
I mean they had Clemson beat.
They beat Florida State, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
they killed Florida State.
Yeah, they killed Florida State, but they had Clemson when Clemson was either just had the one loss. I think they had just lost to NC State, but they had Clemson beat and would have gone to the ACC championship, and they debacle the field goal to
win the ACC.
I'm pretty sure ACC's garbage.
ACC's garbage.
I'll just put that out on the record.
Blair, give us a little information on the Egg Bowl.
Fantastic sloppiness. Glad I had my rubber boots.
Cold and rainy, was it not?
Ole Miss is terrible. by the way. And I'm not
It's
just saying that as an Ole. I mean, y'all have seen Mississippi State all year. Outside of Auburn, when we played Auburn, we ran all over them. From then on out, we couldn't run on a team. And Chris Relf, I don't know what it is about Ole Miss, but Chris Relf has pretty much the last 3 times he's played Ole Miss has completely dominated them.
Is that 3 in a row for them?
That's
or
3 in a row for the first time since 1942.
that any team has won 3 in a row?
No, that
or Mississippi State
has won 3 in a row.
Have y'all been beat 3 times in a row before?
Yes.
Just
if you can remember, that's what Ole Miss hangs their hat on, the 50s and 60s, so they pretty much dominated there for a while.
I love it. Talking 1950s smack.
Oh, yeah. So, but I tell you what, it was impressive. I mean, it was a complete mess. The jerseys were fantastic. The gold shoes were money. So, I mean.
Were you a little scared? I mean, you know, a lot of teams when they have that special jersey out, you know, it's like.
I was a little worried because, you never know what's going to happen. But it only took the first drive. I mean, we took the ball and Chris Relf, I mean, we literally ran it down their throat. And, it was good to see Vic Ballard, ran for about 150 yards and broke 1,000 yards, which, is as horrible as we ran this year. I mean, he broke 1,000 yards.
It's impressive.
So, he did well. And then Chris Relf, I mean, it's something about Ole Miss that brings out the good stuff in Chris Relf, that's for sure. So he's dominated that. So it was a good time. I mean, he got 28-0 real quick in the third quarter, and we were it was kind of it was kind of a nasty night, and there wasn't really any way, shape, or form we were losing the game. And so the second half was kind of blah.
Did you stay till the end?
Yeah.
Did you stay to the very end? Because I loved the dagger.
Celebration.
I love the dagger at the very end where Ole Miss scores and it gets reviewed. And
well, I want to tell you about that because I'll just go ahead and tell you I wasn't going to get into this, but Shane brought it up. How Bush League is this? Basically, for the last 3 possessions, Mullen, with 8 minutes to go in the game, literally handed the ball off to a running back, and he ran it straight up the middle. He was essentially trying to get the game over with. It was 31-3, and he was just going to run the clock. He was not going to throw it. He was going to run it 3 times and punt it, and we were stopping him. We had the ball with 2 minutes left. We just ran it 3 times. The third down with 1 minute and 10 seconds left, Houston Nutt calls a timeout. Now, we're going to have to punt it anyway with like 30 seconds left. But he calls a timeout, which I think is Bush League. And
just wanted to extend his tenure, man.
Yeah, I mean, it was just so. It was so he, we end up punting, and then the first play they break like a 60-yarder to Jamal Mosley, which he finally caught a pass for the first time in all year. They've been waiting for that guy to do something. He gets to the 4-yard line, and they throw a fade, and they called it a touchdown. And they reviewed it, and it was kind of 10 seconds left, and then Brunetti went around the corner, and they couldn't even score on our third string, so it was pretty bad. They're bad, guys.
They're bad.
I mean, their defense is horrible.
All right, we'll transition real quick to another team. I feel like this week was the haves and the have-nots. There was one close game, and that was the Tennessee-Kentucky game, and that's between 2 crappy teams. Would you agree, Shane?
Yeah, I mean,
that still wasn't that was a horrible game to watch. And then all the other games I feel like I was either really impressed by a team and they really took care of business, or they didn't. And here's a team that didn't. The Florida Gators, against their rivals, Florida State. You want the good news? The good news is they gave up 95 total yards.
Yeah, but how many penalty yards did they have?
I don't know if I've got. They gave up.
Look at that. Look at that for both teams.
Florida State had. Florida only gave up 25 yards in penalties. It says, or maybe that's 4 penalties for 25 yards.
How many penalties did Florida State have?
Florida State had 9 for 85.
So they had 85 yards penalties.
And 95 total. and won the game handily 21-7. And that's John Brantley putting them in bad situations at the beginning of the game. That's just 3 interceptions.
What a horrible ending to such a promising, like when he broke Tebow's record in high school and he decommitted from wherever he was committed, either Texas or somewhere. I think it was Texas.
I picked him to win the Heisman this year, possibly. I'm telling you, I remember the spring game 2 years ago. He threw like
he was
6 touchdowns. I mean,
until the Alabama
until
game,
the injury.
He got hurt.
Yeah,
man, it's just been downhill.
3
picks in the first half. I think if I'm not mistaken. It was going on during the Egg Bowl.
Yeah,
So
this was they didn't look good. I mean, Florida State they hung on. I mean, the defense. I think you got to be happy with where the defense is. You've got to hope that they're going to be able to get some pro style players in there because they're trying to run. They want to. It's like they don't know what they want to do. They want to run that spread. Do they want to run the pro style? They've got Charlie Weiss to do the pro style.
If only they had the third fastest player in college football.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's the question that came into the season. How are they going to be a pro style pound it power running game offense with Jeff Demps and Chris Rainey?
And his answer was, "We're not. We're gonna
Right.
we're gonna run the ball like they can run it,
Right.
and
Yeah,
then
so
worry
you-
about that next year."
So you run a spread offense with a horrible spread quarterback, and you can't run the spread without
And
a
with not-
quarterback
with
is the
receivers
most
that
important.
weren't very good.
Exactly.
They
How does
just-
Florida not have a running back that's like a stud?
I don't. Urban Meyer
I mean,
just
the one
never
thing you
could
can
get the
guarantee
big.
about Mississippi State is they're going to have a running back. I mean, they're just going to have one.
There's
And
plenty to choose
they-
from in Florida too.
That's what I'm thinking. It's just, I don't know. And receivers, they don't have any receivers either.
That's the most
skill
amazing
position
part.
is just. Urban Meyer left because the train was falling off.
Yeah, I think that's something else we can talk about too. I mean, I think that's an absolute joke that the guy, he leaves Florida because he wants to spend more time with his family, then he becomes an analyst and is never with his family, and then he takes a job the very next year.
Analysts, the thing about it is I don't know. I think it's a little bit overrated with regards to spending time with your family because he probably goes, he's never there, and then all of a sudden he's there, and they're not there. I mean,
Yeah, they're living their life.
college, they're
Yeah.
living.
They're like-
It's like, where are you at?
or when they're there,
He
it's
can go
like,
for 3
"Dad,
days,
just
yeah.
get away."
Yeah. And he can go for 3 days and be home for 4 days and go see his kids play. I think
Yeah,
that's
but-
what he wanted to do. But I don't think he realized. I don't think anybody thought the Ohio State job was going to
No.
come available. Now,
But
do I
now,
think that he would have come back to coach. Yeah, I don't think he would have come back this quick though.
but even as an analyst, did they not have wasn't he basically in his house for part of his sessions?
Yeah, they have like Kirk Herbstreit where they got a private
Oh,
jet.
yeah.
And
I'm
all
sure
that
he
kind of
just
stuff.
flew out on game day.
But I mean, no, I think they kind of built a mini studio
Absolutely,
in his
yeah.
house.
They-
So I mean, he didn't even have to leave his home to go to Bristol to do half the stuff. I mean, he
It just, in my opinion, it looks weird that you leave one of the best coaching situations in the country and say that you want to get out of coaching for your health and want to spend time with your family. Then 1 year later, you're going
No,
to
less than a year.
yeah,
I
you're
mean,
going to
it's-
another school.
But I'm pretty sure.
Because
I mean,
Ohio State's not that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a better job than Florida.
yeah.
hats off to Bill Cowher for that.
But then,
I mean,
but if Ohio State just comes all of a sudden and says, "Hey, we'd like to have you for 7 years and $40 million," and you sit down with the family and go 7 years and $40 million, that's
And fans were like,
hard
"Yeah,
to
get
do.
out of here."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think he
Exactly.
You're
had
not-
a press conference with the family and told him he wanted to spend more time with Ohio State?
Yeah, that's what he said. He called a press conference in the living room. I need to spend more time with my coaching friends.
but I mean, like Bill Cowher said that, and how many years has he been out now? 3 years.
Has
You
it
know,
3, 4? Yeah, it's he stayed out.
I mean, yeah, he's
I think
actually
he's staying out. Yeah.
There's a
No,
guy that
I
I would take at Tennessee.
there. You go. He might be. I think
$12
he was
million.
out till one of his kids got through some sort
You know,
of
and his
school.
wife passed
I take
away,
Jeff
like
Fisher,
a year
too.
out too as well.
I didn't
She had,
know
like
that.
cancer or whatever. Yeah.
You could bring Fisher in here, and his son's an assistant at Auburn. Is that right?
Yeah,
I'd take-
I'd take
Jeff
Fisher.
Plays at all.
Plays it all.
Plays
yeah.
at Auburn.
I'd take
Well,
Jeff
no, the
Fisher
one-
as a head coach.
One of them from
Jeff
Montana
Fisher
is
would go
coaching.
8-8
He may
even
be
in college
coaching, but I
football.
know that the youngest kid is actually a walk-on like safety.
Okay. Well, so you could have the whole Fisher family up at Tennessee.
All right, I got a question for you guys. Who the hell is this Connor Shaw kid?
Dude.
Look at him, man. Where did this come
Did you hear
from?
my comment? ACC is garbage.
Yeah,
I mean,
what were his final stats?
Clemson.
Connor Shaw was 14 of 20 for 210 yards and 3 touchdowns. Oh, and he runs the ball a little bit too. 19 carries, 107 yards and a touchdown.
Wow.
I mean,
Hey,
that's
You
Heisman
remember
Trophy
Taj Boyd,
type.
Yeah.
That's your boy that you wish you had at Tennessee.
He had a good year until these last few games.
He mistakenly tweeted out this early the week that South Carolina's defense was average, and they shut him down.
I'll tell you, he can talk, but he can't talk with an old ball coach. You heard what he said, right?
That is awesome.
Yeah, we
That's
ain't
why you love old
Alabama
ball
and we ain't
coaches.
LSU, but we sure ain't Clemson. that's
That's three in a row for them as well, which I believe is the first time since like the 60s.
But now wasn't Clemson just smoke and mirrors all season?
No, they
were
Sammy
strong.
Watkins was legit.
Sammy Watkins and they lost him for what, 2 games of the
Yeah,
3 that they
that was one
lost.
of- yeah,
I mean,
2
he
of
was a
3
one-man
losses.
show. Now, you know that offensive coordinator for them has kind of got the ties to Malzahn, you know, with his offense. He was down in Texas, so he's kind of like a protege of Malzahn. But you know, it was kind of crazy. I mean, Sammy Watkins, if you watched him play when they were playing, he was like involved in every play, whether it was fake to him or what. I mean, he was a one-man wrecking machine. And when he went down, they were garbage, and they just had a total collapse. But
and Taj Boyd had a wonderful year. He had 3,300 yards passing and 28 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. I mean, that's a good year. I mean, a little bit of the shine the last 2 games absolutely wore off with them getting throttled by, was it NC State?
Yeah,
and then losing this game the way they did. But yes, I agree with you. The ACC, they're not anything to write home about. But this is a good Clemson team. I mean, they went 9-3. They're playing in the ACC championship game. So South
Carolina, I mean, back-to-back 10 wins. I mean, that's never been done
that's
in
impressive.
their program. I mean, they're good, and it took. I looked at their recruiting. They're like 4th in the SEC in recruiting right now with like 20 commitments, and like 13 of them are 4-star and above. I mean, Spurrier's got it rolling.
He's got the ship in the right direction, doesn't he?
He's just got his problem the whole time, just like any place, is solidifying the quarterback position. If he can do that, and there's rumors that the Devin Taylor kid is going to stay and not go to the NFL, because I know Gilmore and Alshon Jeffrey are pretty much gone. But if they have Devin Taylor next year, they're going to be as sick as Alabama's defense.
And they'll have Lattimore back.
Yeah. And the Connor Shaw, the thing about him, he's a little bit shorter than your normal quarterback, and he runs a little bit, but he's a coach's kid, so he's kind of one of those kids going to give you everything. Yeah. I mean, he's going to give.
He
you
hasn't
everything.
been suspended from the team
He is,
14
he's
times.
Going to give you everything he's got.
But doesn't Spurrier work well with those? I mean, that's the typical.
Spurrier doesn't really work well with any quarterback. I think that's the problem, is that he's just so.
They're not
demanding.
him.
Yeah, I mean, he was a pretty good one too.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I thought it was an impressive win. I mean, I got like 48 text messages from Mark during the game at the Egg Bowl while this was going on, so it was fantastic.
There was nothing better than Spurrier, Florida in the the early 2000s, late 90s when he was rotating. Was it Doug Johnson and Rex Grossman? Like it was every series.
That's why I like Mullen. Mullen reminds me a lot of Spurrier. He's not at Florida. He's not SEC championship.
Visor and
yeah, anytime that he can just pounce on Ole Miss, he does it. I mean, he just takes the shot. I mean, and Spurrier's just like, he's awesome. That was such a great quote.
Britton, let's let you talk about the Iron Bowl a little bit.
I would love to talk about the Iron Bowl. Revenge is so sweet.
What was the motto?
Never again.
Never again.
And oddly enough, the score at halftime was 24-7 again this year. And of course, I'm texting and talking to all my friends, and we're all like, "Yeah, this 24-7 feels a little more safe than last year when Cam Newton was taking the snaps." Because everyone had that feeling last year, 24-7. Cam Newton's just too good. He's gonna.
That's not enough points.
Yeah. Especially after.
Did it scare you when he takes opening kickoff?
Oh yeah. So I'm feeling great. Having a beer at halftime, celebrating with my wife. We're like, yeah, everything's good. And then the opening kickoff goes back because we have a kicker that can't kick it past the 20-yard line. I still don't know how he has a scholarship. And, all the joy just kind of gets sucked out of the room. But even then, we were so much better. Alabama, excuse me, not we.
You can say we.
The defense just beat them down. They had, 42 yards at halftime. Except for that garbage drive, a couple of garbage drives at the end, would have had less than 100 for the game. Clint Mosley is one of the worst quarterbacks in modern college football history. I still don't know why. I mean, Barrett Trotter wasn't good, but I don't know why he's playing over him. And, Alabama's dominant defense just came to play again, and Trent Richardson had another Trent Richardson game, and it was beautiful, and it tasted great. Let's
talk about Trent Richardson for a minute. Some of the projections have him as the Heisman Trophy winner. What do you think? Do you think think he can do it?
I think he can. It's another one of those, when Ingram won it 2 years ago, I was like, I don't know that Ingram's the Heisman winner. And this year I'm like, I don't know that Richardson is the Heisman winner because there's not that clear-cut dominant figure.
It's as wide open as I can ever remember. There's not a distinct 3 or 4, much less.
Well, the top.
Yeah, it's hard to narrow it down to 3.
Well, there's 3 or 4 top ones, and then it kind of drops off. Richardson.
You got Richardson.
Luck,
you got Luck. You got RG3. You got Case Keenum, And then you've got
I would throw
Barkley.
Matt Barkley in there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had a ridiculous season. He's
And
looked as good as anybody.
Of those
Especially
5,
late.
only one has one more game left. The other
how rare is it that they don't have
Oh, and
championship
you got the
weekend
kid from
to
Oklahoma
impress?
State. That's who.
Brandon Whedon or
Whedon.
Justin Blackman.
Yeah.
So
Either one. They
So-
could split votes.
Yeah,
And then Monty
exactly.
Ball in Wisconsin has better stats than
Yeah.
Trent Richardson,
Yeah.
but they had those 2 losses. That
But I mean, you've got 4 of the 5 for sure. They don't have another game to play.
I think if Alabama had beaten LSU and were to win the SEC championship, Trent probably wins it. Just
No-brainer at
because-
that point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
he's
because
got
best
another
player on the
game
best team, and he has that one weekend to show out. But without that, I don't
mean,
know.
203 yards, and I didn't, again, this was happening during the Egg Bowl I was at, but my brother-in-law would text me, and one of his texts was Auburn has 44 yards and 1 first down in like the middle of the third quarter.
Yeah.
And then he sent me the text that said that Richardson just won the Heisman. He's got 203 yards, and he had a 57-yard run that was like ridiculous.
Yeah,
where
he
threw
did kind
people.
of have one of those Heisman moment
Yeah.
runs, but I don't know if I feel like Heisman moment usually happens in a close game. It's not just a great play; it's a great play that means something. And this play was 35-3 or 35-14.
But that was a beastly run.
It was an amazing run.
Is that when the one where they threw people or something? I didn't get to see
he
it,
just
so,
threw a couple
yeah.
people off.
Yeah.
And juked few,
yeah, I don't see much of a difference in his. I mean, he's having just as good a statistical year as Ingram had when he won it. The
right.
difference was
Yeah.
Alabama was undefeated at the time, but
Right.
you're not going to give unless you're going to give it to I don't know who.
Man, RG3.
Matthew on LSU. There's not a you're not going to
Not
give
a
it to Keenum. It
dominant,
doesn't you don't really count his
I think
undefeated
that
season.
I actually think that the RG3 would have, if he didn't
If
get
he didn't
hurt.
get hurt,
Yes,
he
man,
probably-
got
that was
that-
his showcase
that was
opportunity.
and because
and
when
he
did
would have
against
showcased,
Oklahoma, and then of course the very big first of the year when
Yeah.
he went to that
TCU.
whoever it was, the very beginning of the year, was it TCU?
TCU was that
Yes.
opening game.
Man, I mean,
amazing
he's just,
game.
his stats are just unbelievable,
And
and
that-
he's taken a Baylor, and
Right.
just totally
That's-
put him on his
That's
shoulders
like
and
doing
made
it
him
somewhere like Vanderbilt. It's
Yeah.
just unreal for them to be that successful.
So
and
Rodgers
to
for
perform.
Heisman next year is what you're saying?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's crazy because the Heisman has kind of come. It comes back to the team that's undefeated and the best player on a. That's kind of how it's going. And I think if I'm looking there, I think it's between. I think Richardson's the best player in the country. I think.
I agree. I think his. I
I
mean,
think
it's just
what he's done against competition. I think that's
Yeah.
what separates him because he's done it against SEC. It's not like he's played 4 top defenses in SEC and he's not performed well. He's done. His stats are pretty impressive.
Well, and I will say this: I think we kind of misspoke. I mean, Alabama does have another game left, but it's going to be a bowl game. Which,
But the Heisman's given out the 10th.
yeah, but I mean, they're not playing in the SEC championship,
Right,
game, so.
and the only team that is Houston in the Conference USA championship.
Yeah, and I don't.
He Case Keenum can't win it.
I don't.
No.
I don't see
Yeah,
Case Keenum.
I don't
They
either,
already
but-
did that once with Andre Ware. Let's,
You've had your moment.
yeah, Houston's done.
But I'm just saying, of those, so really the voting's done. You're not going to see.
Well, you
another-
got Oklahoma State. I think if Oklahoma State goes out and really takes care of Oklahoma and Whedon has a big game, then I think you'll get a push from him.
You think he can go back from what did he fall to, like 6th or 7th though?
I don't know. I mean, these things are.
That's a big jump.
It's
from
all
what-
about hype, and I'll go ahead and tell you this as a Tennessee fan: if ESPN wants to hype somebody and
they'll
get them some
hype them.
votes,
Yeah.
they can do it.
Yeah, and
So-
plus it's going to be crazy because everything's coming from different regions and how they actually vote. So I mean, I think Trent Richardson's the best, but I mean, if you got some guy out in the West, I mean,
But
he's
we have
looking
an
at Andrew
SEC
Luck.
bias.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
so I think it's going to probably be the closest thing.
I
we've
wouldn't
ever
be
seen.
surprised if some voters who are out of SEC country kind of want to stick it to the SEC since it looks like it's going to be 2 SEC teams in the national championship, and they would vote for Andrew Luck just because the SEC is.
Those
so
are the two names. I
hated.
think if
Those are
I'm
the
actually
two.
trying to look at the line, like odds. Like I'm sure Vegas has odds on the Heisman
Heisman,
Trophy winner,
yeah.
and I would guess that it would be Richardson and Luck would be the two favorites. But keep on talking about this for a second, guys, and I'll pull it up.
Well, we can continue to stall for you there, Drew, if that's what you
Stall.
stall. But that's what's funny about this to me is that generally the Heisman candidates, they have that showcase game, that game of the season to really show, and Oklahoma State's not gonna. I mean, he's even no matter what kind of performance he has, he might get invited to New York. He might be able to improve his stats enough to get invited to New York to be one of the few finalists. But
the problem I had with him the whole time was he's not even the best player on his team.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin Blackmon is
the
by
best player
far,
on that
hands
team.
down, the guy. I mean, he's put up ridiculous stats because that's what Oklahoma State does. They score points.
But it's a good story. I mean, what is he, 28 years old? I mean, so
Is there an age restriction on the
Heisman.
No, Winky won it, didn't he?
That's true. Yeah,
He was
there's a
28 or
precedent.
27.
So, you've got some storylines there. I mean, to make great television as far as the pre-show of the Heisman to talk that up. But I don't see him doing it. Barkley's an interesting one. I mean, he's really improved his stock over the last couple of years. I think he had an option really to go to leave USC when those sanctions came in, and he stuck around. And he's what he's really done is improved his stock for the NFL.
Oh yeah.
But the problem with him is that USC is not getting the pub that they want.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem is people are going to punish him because they're on probation, where in all reality, the players that are there currently, I mean, Matt Barkley's done nothing to be penalized. He's getting penalized enough as it is for stuff that he had nothing to do with. But I think that's why he wouldn't get it, is because...
And they're not. I don't think they're penalizing him so much that he's on a USC team, is that the USC program itself is not on TV like they would have been if they weren't on probation.
It's
So
amazing how
the
under
West,
the radar
the
So
the Pac-10 or Pac-12, whatever they are, the Pac, they're always going to be a disadvantage anyway, just because
their games come on at 1 in the morning.
Right. So Andrew Luck was fighting that anyway, and his one showcase game that he had, he didn't look very well. I mean, so I think that really hurt him from that standpoint. He's still going to go number 1 to draft, but
what helps him is that from day one of the spring practice, he was a potential Heisman candidate. Probably could have went to the NFL as a first round pick last year. So he had the momentum and the hype for the whole season to help sustain.
Has the Colts going defeated?
Yeah, that
to get him.
So you even get them. You even get the hype talked on the professional level. You're right, though. I mean, because every time somebody starts talking about how bad Indianapolis is, the first conversation is that we're going to get Luck. You got some numbers there.
Yeah, you got exactly what we said. Andrew Luck is the favorite. Trent Richardson's a second choice. I mean, and we're talking 5-4 for Andrew Luck and 3-2. So very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, almost even. And then there's another guy, RG3, Robert Griffin III. He's in it at 3-1. Big drop off after that, and we've mentioned all the people: Case Keenum, Matt Barkley, and Monty Ball. Those are the only guys that are on the board. So it's really
He's not even in that. He's not even listed in that.
Yeah, and so I would say
because he went from 9th to 1st and then fell to 6th.
Yeah, I think it was kind of that thing. He got his shot,
and they lost.
And then they lost, and that was a Friday game.
That
wasn't a big game.
He didn't look that bad, really. I mean, the team. If you look at his stats, they were pretty impressive.
Oh yeah, he threw for almost
500
yards. But he threw 3 pathetic picks.
No. Bottom line is, you're the quarterback. You can't lead them to a victory over a 27-point underdog.
Yeah.
Unacceptable.
Yeah.
So,
well, we've got one more game we've left out, and I kind of saved that for the end on purpose. LSU, Arkansas, Friday game.
You missed Georgia Tech.
You're right. Georgia Tech was the next one I was going to go to.
Because I think we'd rather save LSU
all right,
for last.
You're right. Georgia Tech.
Georgia won next.
Another one where Georgia looked very impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, good grief! Talk about a team that got written off.
Oh yeah,
it's amazing where they are now compared to. I mean, against
Week
Boise
30,
State, they looked like a non-bowl team. It's just amazing.
Yeah,
they looked 7-5, 6-6.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even against South Carolina, they weren't impressive. I mean, they showed improvement, but South Carolina was by far the superior team on the field that game. But after that, forget it.
Yeah, it was kind of, the thing about it is Mark Richt, I mean, you got to be impressed. I mean, everybody respects the guy because he's just such a great guy. But, I think the cool thing is that you really saw his competitive spirit throughout those 10 games. I mean, he righted that ship and got everybody aboard
and bought in.
Yeah, and bought into a mission, and they went to it. I mean, I think it's very impressive, and they got a puncher's chance coming up this week. But I mean, to play Georgia Tech, it's always a tough thing to do, and they just dominated them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a scary game.
And Georgia Tech's not bad this year. I mean, they're 23rd in the nation.
No, I thought it was going to be a tough game for Georgia because playing that option and playing Paul Johnson's that's a difficult task for anybody.
Yeah.
But Aaron Murray keeps on impressing. 4 touchdown passes, 250 yards passing. Orson Charles had a big game, almost 100 yards receiving from your tight end hybrid wide receiver guy, and a touchdown. I thought that was impressive win.
And looking towards this week, Crowell, is he going to be back? Are they saying the ankle?
So. Yeah,
I think he's supposed to be back.
So I mean, that only
he's going to make a play. He's just got to be good.
That only helps their situation. Now, let me ask you this: could you see them pulling another thing? A couple years ago, when they all rushed out on the field after that touchdown, who was that against?
Against Florida.
Florida. Could you see if they're able to do like Arkansas did and jump out to an early lead if they try to really take control of the crowd, being in Atlanta, and do something outlandish like that?
I think that LSU's defense will make him turn the ball over. Quarterback just went blank.
Murray.
I mean, he kind of has a tendency to do that in some big games where he makes a mistake or two.
But I'm saying if that were to happen, could you see Rick doing something outlandish like that again to really just – because Arkansas had the momentum at the beginning of that game and the tide switched and – I mean, Baton Rouge took over. LSU just.
You got nothing to lose.
Yeah, I don't see that happening though. I mean, I think that's your SEC championship game.
Yeah, he just did that because Florida kind of had their number and had them emotionally whipped for so many years. I think he just was trying to change the tide in that series, and there's no bad blood with.
I was wrong about the Arkansas game, but I could see something similar. Him doing it may not rush the field like that in a celebration, but if they're able to get on top of LSU quick, for them to try to do something to really take control.
Yeah, I could see maybe onside kicking or something like that. Just try to
because it's not Florida and it's not that same rivalry, but it's him against the world kind of thing. Because nobody gave Georgia a shot, and nobody's given them a shot in the game coming up this weekend either.
Well, there's a reason. I mean,
there definitely is.
And let's talk about this. We'll talk about the LSU Arkansas, then we'll get on to the SEC championship game. But man, from a guy that I know I said that I wasn't sold on the LSU team. I hope people didn't take that as I don't think they're a good team. I just really thought that they had some flaws on offense and they weren't going to be able to do it. Arkansas.
I'll say, boy, was I wrong.
Arkansas up 14-0. I mean, I was sitting there like I got a text from my brother Brett, who's been on the podcast, and he was like, "Hey, you may be right on this." Just like that, snap. They LSU has a touchdown drive, and then they have the Tyrann Mathieu has that punt return, which looked like he made maybe that move was just a lot better than I thought it was. He made one move and just hit that seam, and Arkansas was totally out of position.
I think it was just the kicker kicked the ball in the wrong spot.
Yes, it was a mistake, but they still had people down there to tackle him. He just went right through them.
But the angles were wrong. And he's got the speed, and all of a sudden, when you're out of position like that, that's how you can break off a big 92-yard run.
And I'll tell you something, guys, that we talked about. We thought we all kind of agreed that with Jarrett Lee being a stabilizing force, that we all thought that would be best for LSU, and we don't need to get in this whole Jordan Jefferson and a quarterback controversy. Well, we're right. There is no quarterback controversy.
No.
It's Jordan Jefferson, and I do think he has made this LSU team a better football team.
Yeah.
When he came in, I think that's what won him the Alabama game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they have looked so impressive with him at quarterback. I mean, he just ran with it, and he's like, "Hey, I'm the number one recruit.
Yeah, I mean, they squelched any doubts I had about how good they were. I mean, everybody that listens to the podcast knows that from 6-7 weeks ago, I was preaching that Arkansas has a chance to sneak up in here and play for the national championship.
Yeah, I think we found out that Arkansas is not on that level, and I think the thing about Arkansas is you can take the Mississippi State game. If you can't get pressure on their quarterback and you can't run the football, you will get blown out against Arkansas.
Yeah.
But if you can rush the quarterback and you can run the ball, you will whip them.
Yeah.
And that's just Bobby Petrino. He did it at Louisville. If he got somebody that could rush the quarterback, and LSU was just a nightmare. And the weird thing is talking about LSU. Sorry, knock your computer there.
That's all right.
But
it's not on the ground.
When we started the year, we all thought that LSU and Alabama were going to be the best in the SEC, but we didn't really. We thought Arkansas could be there.
We all thought
but we didn't. We're all talking about is the whole talk was, is the SEC going to win the BCS for the 6th straight year? And we didn't really have, Oregon was going to be there, and Stanford and Oklahoma and all these things. And it's crazy to think that, we're looking 12 weeks down the road, and LSU and Alabama are just in an elite class above everybody else.
I think there's one. I mean, sure, anybody can beat somebody. If you're a good team, you can beat LSU on a given day. But I think there's one team that LSU needs to be worried about, and that's who I think they should play, and hopefully they will play in Alabama.
Yeah, no,
exactly. And
regardless of what happens this weekend.
And I think Bobby Petrino getting mad and dropping the 2 F-bombs on national TV because they scored a late field goal is the biggest garbage thing I ever heard of, because if there's one guy that runs up a freaking score, it is that guy. So if anybody is trying to run up anything, that is – I thought it was such a bush league.
And the blow-off at the end.
By the way, Arkansas fans are just – they won 10 ball games and lost to the 2 best teams in the country, and they are just not happy people. I don't understand it.
They're ready to win national championships.
They act like they should be in the league with LSU and Alabama, and they're clearly not. It just – I don't know. That's just me anyway.
Were you going to say something there?
Well, as a person who went to college in the state of Arkansas, I can assure you that they're one of the most unrealistic fan bases. Probably they're with Ole Miss in terms of where their program actually is and where they perceive that their program is. That's why.
But I think Petrino can take them to a level that they've never. Can get them to that big 8 days. Where they were. Playing in Texas and kind of dominating, but
you want to hear bad news?
What's the bad news?
They got to play Alabama, LSU, and Auburn every single year.
Yeah, amen, brother. I'm right
and,
there
and
with
now
Mississippi State.
And Mississippi State. Sorry, I didn't put them in the middle.
And
Mississippi State's got to play the other 4.
And A&M.
Yeah,
and now A&M.
Yeah, I mean that's just it's going to be tough, and I think it's tough to become a have. And I don't know that Auburn's in that. I don't think that they're in that category yet. I think they bought themselves. I agree with Brent. I think they bought themselves a national championship.
Just a matter of time before it's.
Which the guy wanted to come to Tennessee too, and we didn't want him. That's awesome. Anyway, I'll tell you. Here's an interesting thing that we got from this game. Talk about making a mistake and opening a door. Spencer Ware when he one of the synthetic weed.
Pot, yeah.
He gets suspended a game, and Kenny Hilliard comes on and says, "Yeah, I want to play on this team," and he looked good, man.
Is he a true freshman?
Yeah, I think he's a freshman.
A true freshman. And the crazy thing was the game that he actually missed, which I forget who it was again. I think it was Auburn.
Yeah,
wasn't it? And
yes,
exactly.
It was Auburn.
I mean, he took the first handoff. His first handoff of the game was at the 8-yard line, and he drug 4 Auburn players through the end zone. It was unbelievable. So, LSU is just their depth.
Animal on
stupid.
top of animal. They're just
yeah.
Loaded up and down the line.
Well, that's the games this week. We can go on to.
Let's review one thing we will review, and because we've only got the one game left to talk about, is our picks and kind of go over. I don't want to boast or anything, but I'm good. I mean, if for a man that doesn't go to Vegas at all and doesn't bet,
right there with you.
You need to be getting on the website and paying attention to a couple of us because we believe it or not, I think we know what we talk about. I mean. There's every once in a while I'll get a homer in me and get on a bandwagon where I probably shouldn't have picked Arkansas, and there's a couple of times I probably shouldn't have picked Kentucky, but myself and your brother Brett ended up at 58-29-2 against the spread. I was 7-1 last week, and so was Blair. Blair had an impressive 55-32-2 record against the spread. So I mean. And there's some other good numbers out there. I can give yours out if you want, Drew, but we don't have to.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I mean, I definitely was behind in picking. Now, that being said, I've tried to go out on a limb a few times. I'm pretty sure I picked Jacksonville State to beat Kentucky straight up without a spread. So I don't know that I'm that far behind, but y'all definitely.
So if we took that game out, you'd be 43.
Yeah, 43 but this game, I took Georgia coming up because I want to be different than you guys. I think LSU's going to just beat the pants off Georgia, but I gotta be different.
But
what's y'all's overall record?
Brett was 5-3 last week, and he had a 3-game lead on me, and a 2-game lead on me, and I came in with a 7-1 record. So we tied at 58-29-2. We both have picked LSU to win this week.
Oh, come on, guys. I guess we'll pick the bowl games. so you can separate there.
But that's pretty impressive for the regular season. You know?
Oh, very much so.
So, that's already up on our websites. I know we normally go through and give our picks, but we just had one game this week, and that's the SEC championship, and that'll lead us in to talk a little bit more. We'll spend a few more minutes in it. I think we've talked quite a bit about it, but those picks are up online, so you go and take a check and see what everybody's record is against the spreads. But I had to toot my own horn there. I'm pretty proud of that. So, but we do have the one last regular season game, and that is LSU-Georgia. Does Georgia have a chance, really?
Well, I think that anybody's got it. I mean, they've got a puncher's chance. I just think this LSU team is a special team, and I just think they've got something about them. And
you say that, but what worries me is, y'all said it just a minute ago, is they're so deep. They have so many players returning next year.
They're supposed to be better next year.
Yeah. I know.
All these guys are underclassmen except for the quarterback.
Yeah, I think the thing about them is that I think they've proven so far that they can actually lock in and focus and not look ahead, which is always kind of coach speak.
Well, and they don't let distractions hurt them either. I mean, you had the quarterback controversy that under a lot of circumstances could have destroyed a team.
Yeah, and I think I give it. I mean, we've talked about this before, but Miles is kind of perfect for that group of players because he's not a Saban. He's not like this, intimidating, fiery guy. I mean, he is kind of loose and out there, and I think he allows the players to be a little bit, more loose than normal, and I think it just feeds into it. But, I mean, what they bring on defense is just –
I just think LSU, with the schedule they've played and the way they've performed – I mean, I'll look this up real quick, but obviously they're 12-0. They had the overtime victory against Alabama, but other than that, did they even have a close game? Really? I think they blew.
Mississippi State was 19-6, and that was the closest one. I think in the first 8 that they had.
They won by 13. They won by 46. They won by 13 again. They won by 26. They won by 28. They won by 30, by 31, by 35. Won by 3 against Alabama. Won by 33 against Western Kentucky, won by 49, and then won this last game by 24 points. So they have had one game in single digits. Everything else, I mean, this is an incredibly impressive performance, and I think they deserve. I mean, just the intelligent person would just say they deserve the benefit of the doubt that they're going to win.
And when you're up 52-3 against Ole Miss and you kneel on the ball with 4.5 minutes to go on the 1 yard line and give it back to them,
I think maybe that's part of the reason why he didn't, just tank it against Arkansas.
Well, no,
maybe
that
he got
last drive,
backlash.
I mean, it was 38-14, and they were trying to score on that last. It was 8 minutes to go. I mean, it wasn't like it was 3 minutes and they're trying to tack on a cheap goal. I mean. They were pushing ahead and they were trying to put some points on the board.
They're absolutely throwing the ball too.
Yeah.
So
and, I mean, which the way the system's set up, that's just the way it's going to be.
I do think that the one thing that Georgia can kind of hang its hat on is the one good quarterback. There have been some bad quarterback play in the SEC this year. There's just a lot of them are young. There just hasn't been good quarterback play. The one really good quarterback that LSU played was West Virginia's quarterback.
Geno Smith,
and he threw for 400, 350 yards, something like that. And now, obviously, West Virginia doesn't have the defense to take the physical pounding that LSU gave them, and Georgia at least appears that they do. So if they can protect Aaron Murray, which that's a huge if against LSU, who can light it up, and Georgia's defense comes to play, you never know what's going to happen.
But, I mean, the other thing that you can throw in there is if Georgia doesn't turn over the ball, if Aaron Murray doesn't make a big mistake, which he has every once in a while he does that. I mean, he has a game where he throws 2 just ridiculous picks. But if he doesn't do that, their defense, their linebacker, the Jones kid is just an animal. But, I mean, they can actually maybe somewhat stifle that run game and make them put it in the air where they could possibly make a mistake. And I think that's the only way that something can happen. But you are right.
That's also something that impressed me about the Arkansas LSU game is they just controlled the line of scrimmage on offense even and just ran that ball. I mean, it was almost like Kentucky there for a while. I mean, they were going to line up and run the ball, and you're going to have to stop them, and they couldn't. It reminded me a little bit about Auburn last year. I mean, you knew at the end of the game, Cam Newton really wasn't going to win the game with his arm. He was going to run the ball, and you're going to have to stop him. And LSU kind of flipped the switch and said, we're going to show you how much we can pound that rock right up the middle and right down the sides, and you're just going to have to stop us.
Talking about Honey Badger's punt return, did you see where he just took the ball away from the tight end?
Yes.
The kid caught it. He just went in. He didn't even try to tackle him. He just grabbed the ball and took it.
I thought he was just from watching that Tennessee game. I thought he was a little overrated, and I don't think he's the best cover corner, but he makes big plays, and he did that at the beginning of the year, and he did that in this game. I mean, those were and he had another forced turnover too.
Yeah, and he's a small guy, and so he's kind of he was a two star or something. Nobody even wanted him.
Yeah, he ripped the ball away from Johnson, I think is his name. The
big tight end,
no, he did it twice. He did the first half. He ripped the ball away and caused a fumble when Arkansas was going in to score another touchdown.
Dennis
and
Johnson,
then and then he had the punt return, and then he absolutely ripped the ball, went in the air, caught it, and then returned it a little bit. I mean, I was just thinking, if he runs that back for a touchdown, I'm saying is he in the Heisman race? I mean,
he's
if
amazing.
he hadn't,
you'll see him get beat in man-to-man coverage. Yeah, he's not a great cover corner, like you said, but he's one of the cliche ball hawking, nose for the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was ever a person that deserved that cliche, it's unbelievable.
He's kind of like
he just finds the ball and takes it from you, and he does it all the time.
Like Palomalo type.
What I think's impressive about LSU is, I mean, obviously their defense is what's going to win them most of their games. They've scored a lot of points this year too, and I think that their Achilles heel would be more on the offensive side. They've got the best punter in the country. They're Drew Alamon, their field goal kicker. I don't know his stats or anything, but I'm telling you, I've watched that guy, and he makes most of his field goals. So they've got a good kicker. You would think their Achilles heel would be on offense a little bit, but they can really beat you in numerous ways. They've got a great offensive line that they just traditionally run the ball really well. Shepard can throw it. I mean, he makes some mistakes, but Shepard can catch it. Shepard and Reuben Randall are good receivers. And I'll tell you what I think the big thing is, and an Alabama fan will say this, when they need that big play, they run that option, and that's hard to stop. Yeah. Jefferson, I don't think is the best runner, but he's had some big runs.
He's deceptive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what do you have, a 43-yard run?
Yeah, just right up the middle, just blew away people too.
Miles has even said he always wants 10 to 12 option plays a game just to make you game plan for it, because you're game planning a pro-style offense, but then you have to, in the back of your mind, when they line up in that shotgun, you know that it could be the speed option or the read option, and it's just an extra.
And that's what I think's hard is you go to overtime against Alabama. And remind me, was it 6-6 going overtime, or was it 3-3?
6-6.
All right, so it's 6-6 going overtime. And what is it? Alabama missed a field goal.
No, they got the ball.
Alabama had a penalty and then got sacked and ended up having to kick a 52-yard.
Okay, so they miss a field goal, and then he comes out, and on that very first play, they run that option. I mean, that's a great weapon to have when you're a pro-style offense, exactly like you said, Britton, and you can have the ability to just go, oh, by the way, if we wanted to be an option offense, we've got one of the best quarterbacks in the nation to run that, and our running backs can run it too, and our offensive line can block it.
Right.
Yeah, and
it's hard to stop.
About they don't want to see the rematch, and I can understand why. If you're not an SEC fan, you don't want to see it, but I want to see it because when that thing went into overtime, I was about as excited as I could be about an overtime game, and it kind of
an overtime 6-6 game. It wasn't even a
right. I mean, it was a very. I mean, there was big plays on either side. You know, they showed you that it lived up to the hype. And then you got into overtime, and you make a mistake, then you run the ball, then you get sacked, and then LSU makes a break down the sidelines. It should have scored, and kid steps out of bounds at the 6. And so it was like it just kind of fizzled. And I'd like to see it again. And
yeah, I mean, clearly, I think we've got the two best teams in the country in Alabama and LSU, and that's hard to debate against that. Now, that being said, of course, it's not going to be the sexiest national championship game. It's not going to be USC Texas. It's not going to be Oregon Auburn from last year. I know that wasn't as high of a scoring game as you thought it would be.
I'll tell you one thing that makes it intriguing is that it's in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine?
Where you've got Alabama and LSU. I mean, you talk about tickets. Like last year was crazy with tickets in Auburn and Oregon, because it was like StubHub's, largest. I mean, before this Alabama LSU game, it was the highest priced ticket on StubHub, where they had to pull things off, and people were trading in. StubHub was actually purchasing back tickets. It was a crazy episode, and I mean, you get Alabama and LSU in the Superdome.
Let me ask you a question, Blair.
Insane.
All right, so I went to Bonnaroo this year. Whatever that that's all about. I go to Bonnaroo, and of course I find they have a StubHub sports tent, and it was air conditioned, so of course that's where I'm going, and they're showing sports all day, and they had daily sports trivia contests, and you could have like a team of 3 or 4, and I went solo, and I won the sports trivia contest, and I got a $100 gift card to StubHub. Am I getting into the national championship game for $100?
No.
Do I need to add a 0 to that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's ticket reservations.
I know
for
that last.
1,000
I know
right
that
now.
last year, after the game, because I've got several Auburn fans. One of my best buddies actually played at Auburn. They purchased 2 tickets on StubHub about a week after the SEC championship game, and they purchased them, for the whatever it was, close to like $140 a piece. StubHub contacted them back and actually offered them the price for the tickets plus like $500 a piece, because they had gone from basically $140 to, they were going for the $3,500 on StubHub. So what StubHub was doing was they were calling all the people that had purchased them and would say, I'll give you your money back plus I'll triple. So instead of you just getting your $300 for 2 tickets, I'm going to give you $1,000 for those 2 tickets back. And it was crazy. And then you had the whole brokerage deal that kind of created a big mess where people got, kind of messed up. But, I had a buddy that went into the game and he sat there and watched a guy pay $8,000 for 2 pairs of tickets.
Jeez.
I'd love to get my
Cash in
hand. Just,
Chris Lowe was actually talked about that. I mean, he watched it.
yeah.
Trade
Wouldn't you
hands.
love to just have some kind of connection and get you about 20 of
I mean,
those?
Mississippi State.
yeah.
I mean, if
Not
Mississippi
work for
State's in
you.
a national championship game, I mean, I'm there and I'm in Arizona.
You're dropping 4 Gs
And
on it?
No, if I'm sitting there and I've purchased them for
Okay,
$350 and somebody's going to offer me $5,000 for them, I'm going straight to the nearest bar with $5,000 in my pocket.
Yeah.
And a
I like
national
that.
championship T-shirt on your way out.
Exactly. I mean,
Here's
that's
the thing,
just,
Blair,
that's
I'll go
just
ahead and tell you
crazy.
this. You say that right now, I bet you're in that stadium. I bet you're turning down. You're not even listening to offer because you don't want to be tempted.
The ultimate
funny.
dilemma. That would be tough.
You're gonna have noise canceling headphones on.
See, that's
Just
the
walking
problem is
eyes-
I was 18.
blinders on straight to the.
I was 18 when Tennessee, won their national championship, and could conceivably, I was in my first year of college. I went to every road game except for South Carolina that year. I mean, I missed the South Carolina game. It was the only game I missed, so I conceivably could have gone, and that's when tickets were. I could have actually bought them then. I just hate the fact that now I know unless I get this job tomorrow and then I get about 15 promotions, I can't go to a national championship if Tennessee gets there, which is kind of sad. But
We're gonna have to get one hell of a sponsor, either or.
I want media passes. I mean, good grief, we've got 65 followers on Twitter now. I mean, that's got to be worthy of getting some media sponsors.
Our clout score's through the roof.
Hey, I want to say this. I was looking through that, and 1025
The game.
is one of our followers. Congratulations, man. You've got or congratulations to us. I mean, that's a good.
Is Brooklyn Deckler following us yet?
Yeah, I think so. She's following me personally. Have y'all not got the follow yet?
Chrissy Teague's birthday's today, correct? Is that right?
Yeah, I think I saw that.
Her and Mark Twain share a birthday.
Yeah.
So happy birthday.
Was
to
that you? Did you retweet? Who tweeted
It was.
that?
I don't know. I didn't find it worthy of retweeting because it came from the Dan Patrick folks.
Oh yeah, that's what I saw.
Because they
I saw
got
that.
the Sports Illustrated connection.
Yeah, I
there.
gotcha.
But we're really, really long on this podcast. But I think we need to spend just a couple more minutes. And if you're not a basketball fan, I guess you can say thanks for listening. Catch us, on the next episode. But I think let's spend a few minutes talking about this week in the basketball schedule. For the SEC, it's a big week, isn't it? It's the SEC. Was it called the Big East Challenge? Is that what they call it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know what the official term is, but all the SEC teams are going to be in action either at a Big East school or vice versa. So there's going to be some pretty decent matchups there, and it's good TV. It's it's nice to see them get those things out of conference, and then Kentucky's also going to get a double dip there, and they're going to go in the ACC to meet North Carolina this week as the number 1 team in the nation.
Yeah, number 1 and 2. They swept switch places, right?
Yeah, so they switch. No, Duke's number 2.
Oh, is it? Well,
Yeah.
they won't be for long.
So Duke went to number 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Duke went to number 2. I think Carolina dropped to 3 or 4 after their loss. But it's a big week. We've got, and we'll just hit it quickly. Providence at South Carolina. Who cares? Who cares? I mean, I don't think either team's expected to do anything there. That's going to be tomorrow, the 1st, and then you're going to have St. John's at Rupp Arena. That's Kentucky. So they've got, and Kentucky's got a pretty tough 3-game stretch. They've got St. John's, North Carolina, and then they're followed up by Indiana, who's a much improved Indiana, and that's always a big rivalry game for Kentucky anyway. So they've got a pretty tough 3-game stretch in the basketball world. Ole Miss is at DePaul, and then Georgetown is at Alabama. So the first night, Thursday, it's all no, it's not all. I was gonna say all at the SECs, but Ole Miss is at DePaul. So you got a couple good games there on Thursday, and then Friday you've got Florida at Syracuse.
That's a huge game.
That's a great game. Cincy at Georgia, Vandy at Louisville. That's pretty interesting matchup right there. Then Auburn at Seton Hall.
Yeah.
And then Arkansas closes us out Saturday against Connecticut, at Connecticut. And then, like I said, Kentucky also follows up by playing North Carolina there. So,
West Virginia plays at Mississippi State.
Oh, I got to keep
Saturday.
I didn't scroll down far enough. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got a couple more.
Yeah. I didn't scroll down enough. Pittsburgh's at Tennessee. Think you got a shot there?
I think there's always a chance. I mean, they played.
So
really
you're
good
saying
against,
there's a chance?
They played good against Pittsburgh last
Pittsburgh,
year.
Top 20 still?
They're 17. Yeah.
Okay.
Can't beat Oakland, but hopefully you can beat. I mean, they played good against Memphis and pretty good against Duke.
I don't know anything about Pitt, so.
This just keeps going. We've got some good stuff here. LSU at Rutgers, West Virginia at Mississippi State. That's going to be a good game.
Huggy Bear.
So that's your Saturday matchups, and then I think you close up the Big East SEC week Sunday. South Carolina is at Clemson. That's an ACC game, but Ole Miss is at Penn State. So they'll finish this up at 6:00 on Sunday. So
I thought Seton Hall was. Is that who Kentucky's got?
St. John's.
St. John's. That's right. Sorry. I thought St. John's was
one of those.
I thought they would be ranked. I don't know what they've done this year, but
they lost at that tournament Mississippi State was in that won. We went up there and beat.
Oh yeah, they're 4-3.
Madison
So
Square Garden.
Maybe they've.
That was a big weekend for State.
Yeah. So I mean, we're really getting into some good basketball play. You'll get another couple of cupcakes going in, but we're right around the corner from SEC action in the 1st of January, and I'm going to throw it out to you guys. You want to start doing a pick-em once we get in the SEC on basketball, like we did with the football. We won't go in depth in the previewing it, but throwing something up on the website. I think
we can give it a shot
and see how that goes. I mean, that's just a 16-game schedule. Is that right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see how we do with our basketball picks as well. So you can be out and look out for all of that. But with that, I think we're going to start to bring this roundtable to a close. As always, we have an open mic at the end. Anything you want to talk about, football, basketball, sports, non-sports related. Drew, won't you kick us off? Tell us any movies? Or what's your topic for the day?
Well, I'm going to give you a couple things here, or at least one. No movies, but here's a show that if you're not watching, or if you like TV, you should be watching.
Friday Night Lights.
That's a wonderful show. I'm sure everybody's watched that. That was a great show. It's done though. On Showtime, Homeland. We're in the first season. We're 9 episodes in. I got a recommendation from Trent Satterfield, who's actually been on the podcast before, and that show is wonderful. Nobody's seen it here?
No.
It's wonderful. It's Claire Danes. It's like one of those hour long. It's about
Now Claire was in that movie about the cows, right?
Yeah, Temple Grandin, which is a wonderful movie as well. But no, it's a great. You got Inigo Montoya from Princess Bride in there as well.
Today.
Yeah, I mean it's and he plays the same character. He's a Spaniard looking for revenge. No, just kidding. It's a good show. There's a lot of crap on TV. What I want to get out, guys, is expand your television. If you're going to watch television, if you don't watch TV, that's fine. If you're spending time with your family or working in the yard or working out or doing something else like that, that's great. But if you are going to be watching TV, make sure it's good TV. Reality TV, we don't need to be watching this Sing Off and Dancing with the Stars. I mean, that doesn't get your brain moving at all. Let's watch some good TV like Homeland or.
Now the Sing Off, I hate to say
I'm not saying you can't have a little bit of guilty pleasure.
That can bring
there.
up the hairs on the back of my neck the way they can sing sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't watch Idol or the others. I go a cappella or nothing.
That's it. It's got to be. They can't. You just don't like instruments.
That's right. I have a thing against them.
But it's just it's a good show. A lot of people don't have Showtime. I said if you order it and you don't like it, they'll probably give you your money back. I can't guarantee that, but just ask them.
Just tell them Drew told you that.
Say Drew Young from SEC Sports Roundtable told me if I ordered Showtime and watched the show and didn't like it, that you give me my money back, and we'll see what they'll do.
It's got good ratings on IMDb, 8.7 out of 10. So
it's wonderful. It's a good show.
Well, there you go.
You can follow me at DrewYoung20 on Twitter. I'll throw some nuggets out there about what shows you should be watching, what movies. I am going to be doing Movie Day 2011, where watch out Carmike Cinemas at Thoroughbred. We're going to be paying for one, and we're going to be staying for three. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you that warning. So if you listen to us, you've got the opportunity to stop us. I don't know what I'll be wearing, but
and you don't know what day.
Yeah, you don't know what day, but just be on your toes.
There's ways you can find out what he looks like.
Hey,
so.
I'm just kidding, guys. Any cops listening, I'm not going to do that, but maybe I will. If it was legal, that's what I'd do. That's it for me.
Britton, got anything you want to add or sign off with there?
I'll echo the don't watch reality TV thing. I can't stand reality TV. But I'm a Titans fan, so let's go. Anybody in Nashville that's listening, I've got season tickets, so I'm a little bit of a bitter Titans fan because we always seem to go 8-8 or worse, and those tickets aren't cheap. But we still got a chance at the playoffs. Every quarterback in the division is hurt, so let's rally them to a victory. Did
you go to the game this weekend?
I was a bad fan. I sold my tickets.
Yeah,
two Titans fans.
You sold them?
Yeah, I was able to sell them.
That's unbelievable. I was there for the first half. We have tickets as well, and it was miserable. It was cold and just miserable. Raining, and I finally convinced my brother and actually two other SEC Sports Roundtable, my brother Brett and Chad Caldwell. They went to the game. He went to the game with us, and I just I said, look, guys, it's just this is miserable if you unless you were wearing like a poncho and rain pants or we're in the club level or in a suite, it just wasn't worth it. But we left at halftime and got back and saw the end, so that was good.
It was a good game, but not worth being there with the way it was.
It was a miserable weather-wise.
Yeah.
Do you have a Twitter?
Yeah, I'm BC Burton 13.
There you go, BC Burton 13. Blair.
Yeah, I'm looking. I'm excited about the Music City Bowl possibly here, and
now there's only one thing really keeping you guys from that. Is that not correct?
Georgia upset probably.
Yeah, and that would put and we
that
never
would just put us.
We've said we'd cover the bowls
probably,
the whole time, and yeah.
But Music City, 6-6, be able to come to Music City, I think will be as long as you don't have to go to Memphis, I think they'll be excited.
As a Kentucky fan, have been to the Music City Bowl a number of times. I mean, they do a great job for.
And State's never been, so I think it'll be good for Nashville. A couple of guys on the radio shows, Mark Howard and a couple of them have kind of made fun of it, but I guess they didn't realize that we took about 25,000 to the Gator Bowl last year. So I think we can at least bring 30,000 to Nashville. We got a pretty strong contingent. So
and there's a lot of state grads and state fans in the Nashville area.
Yeah.
So
and it's an easy drive. And they're kind of over the Liberty Bowl aspect of it. I mean, that's an easy drive up for most state fans, and they're not going to stay in Memphis typically. And,
well, I was about to say the Liberty Bowl really wouldn't want you because you're not going to stay in Memphis.
The Liberty Bowl would have us in a heartbeat because the only two times they've ever sold out their bowl games have been Mississippi State.
They really make their money on people spending the weekend making an event of it, and you're going to come up for the game and then leave.
Yeah, but I think it's a numbers game. If you can sell that out, you're still going to make more just because people are going to eat there then because it's kind of like the Music City Bowl.
crazy.
If Tennessee had have won Music City Bowl,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
absolutely taking
yeah.
Tennessee because it was. I mean, they're going to feel that they're going to have 67,000 people in there, and even though they're not staying the night, they're going to be eating. They're
Yeah.
going downtown,
Yeah.
and a lot of them do stay the night. It's
Yeah.
better than getting 40. So I apologize. Were you saying you're thinking Music City Bowl
Oh, yeah.
for? Yeah, I think that's kind of a lock.
Yeah, and because I think they're not going to take Vandy, that since they had them just recently, that was the interesting thing was the Liberty Bowl. I think we sold them out in like '84 when we played Air Force, and then we went with Croom about 4 years ago or whenever it was. Took about 45,000 fans. It was crazy. I think we'll bring a good contingent here, so I'm looking forward to it. It'll be an easy thing for me since I'm here. So,
And
hopefully they'll be cowbell sensitive.
And your Twitter
Is Blair at Blair Smiley, and that's SMYLY.
You're going to make your first tweet here one of these days,
Yeah,
right?
I know, man. I'm kind of holding out. I want to.
gotta have a breaking story. Is that what it is?
I think I actually need to wait until I get an actual smartphone. That's what I'm waiting for.
There you go. I at home I use TweetDeck a lot, and that works
I'm
real well
holding
for
out.
that.
Yeah, I'm holding out right now on the phone aspect.
Well, I've got a busy weekend coming up. I actually am going on a date. I was informed of that this evening before the podcast. I think my wife is, in spring cleaning mode come for the winter, to get her house scrubbed down or whatever. So she informed me that I needed to take my daughter on a date. So I'm making plans. I'm going to go see a movie. I haven't seen a movie in a while, but I think we can give you a
Muppets.
No, my wife is a huge Muppets fan. I mean, like as a kid, she said she wanted to grow up and be a Muppeteer and make the Muppets. So I can't rob her of the Muppets. So I think we're going to go see Arthur Christmas, little kids movie.
What about Oh, never mind. What is Hugo? Is that a?
Go see Hugo.
That got really good reviews. Is all I know.
With the family over Thanksgiving.
No bueno.
No bueno. Not
I
enough
don't-
explosions.
Not enough explosions.
Yeah.
I don't even
But it
know
really
what
wasn't good.
I don't even know what Hugo is. So
It's Martin Scorsese, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks good in the previews, and it's Scorsese, but it's
he did a kids movie.
Apparently.
yeah, it's a family movie.
Really?
But it's good story could have been told in 10 minutes instead of 2 hours.
You can go to ICE. Pay
Ice
like
up
25 ahead.
in Opryland.
It'd only be you, so she's under 4, right?
For
You
as
can
far as
lie.
yes,
Go see. I'm sure she wants to see Twilight, right?
yeah, New Moon, is that the one that's out? I don't even know. Eclipse, Harry Potter, is it still on? I'd like to go see that one. I never got to see the last Harry Potter.
Just you got to read those books, man.
I've read them all.
Read them to her. Read
I-
all 7 of them. Read all 7 of them to her in a row.
That'll give your wife time to clean.
If you start today, what day are you going on Saturday?
Friday.
If you start today, you'll finish by Friday.
So it's a rarity. I have 2 kids, and we rarely get to go to the movies. So I get to go to a cartoon.
That'd be awesome.
So I'm going to take my daughter out to, I guess we'll go do dinner at Chick-fil-A. It's not holding anything back there for her.
She's not scared of the cow, is she?
Not anymore.
Okay.
There was a time where she's
I
terrified.
know,
That's
man.
hilarious.
It's like 2 years old, and they're scared to death of the cow.
And they encourage
a
that
pretty
cow to
terrible
come out on
cow.
kids' night when there's all these screaming kids that are just going through shock that the cow's sitting there. And now Chick-fil-A, if you want to sponsor us, we'll let you bring the cow over anytime you want. You're great. The spicy chicken sandwich is unbelievable.
I'll go ahead and tell you, Shane. You didn't get on me about Tennessee, but if you keep talking about Chick-fil-A, we're gonna have words, man. That stuff's too good.
Their food's unbelievable. We're just talking about the cow.
I think I'm going after the show.
The cow scares used to scare my daughter, but she's not scared of it any longer. So we not going to hold any expense back and go all out. Might let her get the 6-piece nugget instead of the 4. But
Arthur Christmas got really good reviews too.
It looks kind of cute.
I think it's a 92% from Rotten Tomatoes. So
there we go.
81% audience rating. So you could probably go good with that.
So I'm going to go have a father-daughter night Friday, and that's going to be the kickoff to the weekend, and then I'm going to plant my butt on the couch and watch a little football Saturday afternoon. So you can follow me personally on Twitter at pshanebailey. That's the way to find out, and that's all our personal stuff. So you might or might not get football talk there, but if you're interested in what's going on with us or what we're thinking, feel free to follow us all personally.
And if you get offended by anything any of us said, and probably most likely me, just unfollow, man. Just follow SECSRT. That's going to be clean. I can't guarantee the same with me. I had a few choice words at the end of that Tennessee-Kentucky game, as Shane and Blair can attest to.
And, it didn't take long to get some text messages. And I wasn't going to say a thing to Drew at all, and it wasn't, 30 minutes after the game that here comes text messages from Drew about the game or the lack of conversation.
Man, it was because you had a picture of the team rushing the field. I want to know, is that the record for the worst team with the worst record to ever lose a game and then have the other team rush the field? I mean, that was a 5-win team.
Probably not.
Dude,
Probably not.
26 years, man.
Yeah.
Had it been 26 years?
84.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long time, man.
Yeah, like you didn't know. You're playing dumb here. Guys, with that, we're gonna end this roundtable discussion. Thanks for listening, and check back next week.